with the draft already underway here between Wham and Beasty in the second semi-final for us today, and this will determine which of these two players will meet Anochad, who has secured his spot in this week's finals and looks poised for a ripe chance at being the next player to secure that second spot at the LAN in London.
And what a map to kick this off with. Baldland, and this time we get a little bit of French on Baldland. So something that has been feared for a long time, but, you know, AUBits, they don't do too badly in this situation. So 20 seconds before we get into it, but we know that these two civs are, I would say, pillars for both of them. Wham, as most people, can play AUBits insanely well. He knows his timings, he's very accurate, he doesn't make mistakes with this. Beasty on the French, though, very recently, I would be quite worried if I was Wham, especially with those 10 little woodlines.
Yeah, it's a very interesting matchup here, because AUBits traditionally considered one of those counter civilizations to the French, but it's not as easy as that, is it? You know, when it comes to a counter in Age of Empires 4, one civilization countering another, yeah, in theory that's true, but you damn well play it correctly, otherwise it won't even feel like it, right? And that is the case here as well, as we load into Baldland with Wham in the color purple as the Iobids spawning towards the eastern corner, facing Beasty in the color yellow as the French. One of his signature civilizations, I would say. I'm curious if you agree with that, Wham, and historically, you know, this is one of the civilizations that he used to great effect when he took down Marine Lord in that coveted finals. Which tournament was it now? I can't even remember. Which EGC was it?
Beasty definitely has shown his teeth on French, even against the likes of Marine Lord. And I always like to make the joke that Marine Lord, when he plays French, is on home civilization. The Beasty feels like he needs to pick that away from him. But there's a thing. Beasty loves French, no matter his opponent. He loves the civilization because he knows with the micro that comes out of this, he can do that swimmingly. Now, we have to keep in mind, French plays a little bit differently when you're up against a European opponent compared to an opponent that is based on the side of the US all the way out there. The knight charges are so easy to misfire into spears, and that is something that Beastie needs to be very careful of. So definitely not going to be an easy one for either of these guys, but yes, no, I think for Beastie, this is a matchup that he needs to win, knowing how highly he values French.
We just double check, it was the EGC Masters Winter, where Beastie took down Marine Lord 5-2, drafting both JD and French, and winning with both of them there. I would say that finals was one of the first sort of indications then, 2025, of a sort of heavy knight meta starting to sort of unfold. That was during the peak of Pro Scouts as well. Since then, it's only been more and more prominent, and it's exactly what we're going to be seeing in this game as well. Logistics is on the way here for Wham. He's likely going to try to make a pass for Castle Age as fast as he possibly can, maybe making a pit stop for a few Desert Raiders along the way, because for those who aren't aware, Desert Raiders eat knights for breakfast.
Now, Desert Raiders are going to be necessary to keep him under control, but we need to notice Beastie is stacking up a little bit high here on the gold. So even if he goes for the logistics, this is going to mean that he's going to need to be everywhere. And we do see him going on wood already. Wham, making sure he gets that wood needed for any production building that may be deemed necessary with the School of Cavalry coming out. Beastie floating a ton of gold. And ladies and gentlemen, we all know what this means. So the man is going to go out there, pro scout as hard as is needed, and make sure that the knights that he makes, they hit properly. Now, I'm wondering if he values getting that first knight out first before going for the pro scouts, because a lot of players, they either go for 1 knight, 2 knight, 0 knight pro scout. There's always that bit of a balance that they like to strike in between. But when you know your opponent is going for dervishes, that knight just doesn't feel as potent as you could imagine, because it's just going to be able to heal up any units that he dares get a charge on.
We'd have a little bit of a slip up, I have to say, on this little opening build order here from Beastie. There's a bit of an overflow of gold compared to the timing of the age up, which results in a slight slowdown here. The landmark coming down on 5 seconds at least later than it should. Gives Wham a bit of extra time here to set up. Shouldn't make too big of a difference in the long run, but these little openers do matter. Something one player has to be very, very careful about here. But the School of Cavalry, French on this map is very dominant indeed. The small woodlines, the highly open nature of the map, as well as the contestable premium food with most of the deer very central, as well as the boars on either flank, means that a knight civilization like the French here in the feudal age can shine very, very well indeed. On top of that, the central gold there, which is always central or close to central here on Baldlands, is a ripe place to strike for Beasty. The only concern is that secondary gold, which is indeed way more defensible, but also way farther away from the safety of the town center.
And with that extra gold, he did opt to go for the mining pick, which makes sense. If you are already over mining on something, you want to make sure you get the most value out of it. But also including that double broadaxe is telling me we might not be dealing with pro scouts here at all, as Wham is committing to a handful of desert raiders already to handle these knights that are coming on out. And of course, when you have the dervishes right there behind you, you don't mind taking a pretty good trade here. Survival techniques also coming in, but we see that knight looking for a little bit of damage already, and the dervish is going to be able to keep itself alive, run away safely. The knight needs to back out before the camel, or the camels start arriving and take down the HP that will take a long time to be able to heal.
Having faced Beasty myself multiple times, I know that he is not the type of player to shine away from going pure knight only with French if the duty calls for it. Which, considering that second stable already being placed down before a range, I think is exactly what he's cooking here. As a dervish is going to heal up the Desert Raider, who is one hit from death, but the debuff comes in clutch as that sword strikes down upon him, and just barely enough blood left in him to survive.
Now, he did get one little victim there on the gold, because if the dervishes are this far forward, it means the other knights have a pretty safe place to land. But keep in mind, Beasty doesn't have unlimited food here. This is one of those awkward spots where you're making a lot of knights, you need to do a lot of damage to make this worth it as well. The dervish numbers are still constant, but your camels, he's not investing in any more. With that gold, having a tower as well, you're putting yourself in a spot where that castle age should not be too scary. Beasty going for horticulture now too. So definitely not looking like he's too scared of going out there for the berries and moving out on the map. He has two very safe berry packs there at the back, but you have to keep in mind, Wham has mobility, so you still can't just move out without taking a risk. But I see a lot of villagers moving to the north, and all of a sudden it feels like this man might be going for a very ballsy play onto the boar, and that's exactly what he's doing. He needs a lot of food to make this work, and that's exactly what he's going to be doing.
Yes, recognizing the fact that Wham, really, his main option here, only option really in this matchup, is to get to that castle age as fast as he possibly can, as long as he can survive. Beasty, of course, knows this, and is going to leverage that to his advantage to try to get as much of the premium food on the map under his belt as he can. And it starts with that boar. Actually, though, he goes past it onto the deer instead, interestingly enough. Maybe he doesn't have a knight in position to tank the boar, so he just goes for the safer option in this case. And this pure knight committal from Beasty, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's going to be fantastic for control, great for raiding, mobility, even diving. But the Desert Raiders, which now Wham is fully committing to with the military wing reinforcement, will always beat these knights, especially with the healing behind them. So it's a bit of a concerning reality here for Beasty, one that he could potentially address through sheer better control here, with some raids, with some better micro. But other than that, the odds are stacked against him from a composition perspective.
Now, with that chivalry, these knights are going to love doing these dives to just heal back up. But the Desert Raiders, they are pretty fast as well. You can't just go in without getting properly punished for it. Reinforcement wing is going to take a while, but Beasty getting that tower up on the deer, just make sure that he has a little bit more breathing room between all of this. Wham, he's got the resources, though, that even when he hits Castle Age, he's going to quickly be able to put in a few camel lances if he's so pleased. But we can see now, Beasty knows he needs to shut down this gold, and he needs it quickly. He goes in quite deep here. The Desert Raiders are peppering away at these knights, but they do have +1 ranged armor, so it's going to take a lot of those little shots to actually make them go down.
Exactly right. Desert Raiders won't do too much damage in range form to the knights, but when it comes to melee, that huge base melee armor alongside the damage and the debuff is going to be instrumental to them. But the mass is a problem here, right? It is a fast castle at the end of the day. Beasty has already made him bleed. One villager had fallen earlier on the berries, and now is idle time on the wood line as well. Beasty might look to fully commit to this gold. That could be an option for him as the charge comes through. Great connections on the Desert Raider, but not enough to kill it. The Desert Raider healing is always going to be a nuisance. And the count favors Beasty for now. 11 knights, soon to be 12. 12 now to Wham's 5 Desert Raiders. But suddenly, that's 8. And Veterancy is going to be in the queue immediately, I assume. And soon enough, he's going to have another 3. Every 2 minutes, there's going to be another 3 Desert Raiders that Wham gets from that House of Wisdom immediately in his military value.
And Beasty is tripling down on the knights. We can see with that 3rd stable coming down now, he is going to be a very happy camper in just focusing on exactly that. But this can be so risky. The knights do get the connection, and the camels don't have their upgrades yet, but the sheer numbers are making that difference. No villager falls, but a knight may pay the price, and he does get one of them, and that is so expensive. Beasty has access to so much food on the map for now, and he does get a villager behind this.
Yes, he sacrifices a knight, but causes plenty of idle time, and looks like might be even 2 villages, maybe? Oh, it was very close. I think it's only a matter of just a few HP for that villager to live there. At the same time, at the front gold, more idle time is caused. And the pressure definitely is mounting on top of Wham right now. There's a lot of raids and a lot of back and forth, but he's not under too much pressure, realistically speaking. The Desert Raiders will keep coming. The gold access is still there. Now the back berries is getting secured. That would be a great place for Beasty to strike, and that seems to be exactly what he's thinking. He can't contest the gold effectively, but he may be able to limit the food.
Now the food is where it usually hits hardest. As we see with the berries, you do need to move out quite a far way from the safe parts of your base. And these berries, there's a wall between them, but the villagers are going to be constantly trying to respond here. The camels now, if they follow him upwards, they might just find the rest of the deer that are killed out there too. So this is not a spot Beasty wants to drag him to, unless he wants to use that tower for a little bit of a power play. But Beasty himself is thinking about castle now, and he's gotten 3 villager kills. But is this going to make up for the fact that Wham is just being let pick up every relic he dreams of? And with those, he's going to be able to soon enough see where Beasty is getting his food from. And he's going to have a Wololo, but the Beasty is quickly trying to build up this tower. Beasty, is he looking? He does, but the villagers are dead.
Yeah, this is exactly what Wham needed to find. This is how it all starts going wrong for Beasty, I think, in this game. That tower not being up in time, being discovered by the dervish, is crippling. The villagers will fall. One has already died. He doesn't even need to chase them. He could just switch to rage and they'd end up dying even quicker if Wham so chooses. Meanwhile, he could even potentially look to trap the knights in that northern corner after this from either side. Beasty has to be really careful with his movements now. He's going to look for a wide flank around to go onto the berries, it looks like, potentially. That may potentially go unspotted, but he has more villagers here. There is a tower, but that just means that there's a spot additionally there for Wham to strike. Another raid comes through, though. Looks like Wham is not paying attention. Focus on the northern micro, and he's going to pay the price for it as well, as another 4 villagers go down. Beasty taking a firm economic lead at this point, and his own Royal Institute is coming up, but he's taking the fight before that Institute is finished, and that's exactly what he doesn't want to do. Looks like a knight had fallen, as well as a dervish and a desert raider, so considering he's behind an age encountered, that was as good of a trade as he possibly could have hoped for.
But those villagers are sitting ducks as the camel numbers are just increasing. Now we have 7 camel lancers, and honestly, 11 at the end of this is going to be crazy. When you're getting to these knight numbers, Royal Institute is not what you want to have, as they're just falling like flies right now. Beasty doesn't have access to too many resources here behind this either. His gold has been tapped out. He's out there on the side, and Wham can easily rotate to try and trap this. But we do see there's purple dots everywhere. The army matters here. Beasty may have gotten some kills, but Wham has gotten exactly what he needs to keep him under control. And these knights, they may have their upgrades, but the camels will reign supreme. We see the villagers desperately trying to get back to the TC, but this is just a massacre.
There's nothing left here for Beasty. With the addition of the Camel Lancers means that Wham can now dive under TCs with impunity as well. The one weakness of Desert Raiders is now cancelled out by the presence of those Camel Lancers, and Beasty can never hope to ever engage this mass at this rate. Even with Bloodlines, it wouldn't make any difference really. It's just too much. Too many camels on the field. Quadruple outpost on the gold will buy him some time, but plenty of time is what he needs, and without the guild hall either ticking behind this, it's not like an Imperial Age within 10 minutes is going to be a bailout option for him. The idle time is just crippling. He's looking to find damage besides this on the flanks, Beasty, but whatever damage he finds, it's very minimal in the grand scale of things here. Looks like more idle time has been caused on the day there by Wham, but Beasty gets a few nice pickups at that point. However, he's suffering his own losses in turn.
Now, these camels might be falling, but as they're falling, more are coming out, and Wham is looking like an absolute monster on these Aeobids. Now, these towers are firing pretty hard, and the Desert Raiders, they are quite susceptible to this, but the Camel Lancers are providing a little bit of a front line to ensure that the villagers are the ones really paying the price here. Royal Bloodline's almost in now, but Wham, it doesn't look like he's breaking a sweat. That fourth relic is on the way back to the base, and Beasty, he needs to find a way to clean this up or do some counter damage quickly. Now, we do see the army value. It is starting to get a little bit closer with the knight numbers, and Royal Bloodlines is a real power spike. This is the opportunity he's going to have to try and make this work. And is it going to be enough?
Is it going to be enough? The healing from the chivalry for these knights is instrumental in making this possible for Beasty in the long run. The food is a struggle for Wham at this point, compared to earlier, so some of the production has slowed down for Wham. And my concern for Wham actually is the sheer investment into these Camel Lancers. Now, Camel Lancers, they are camels at the end of the day, so they will debuff Horse Cavalry, so that's always somewhat of a counter. But from a stat point, they are weaker in virtually every way compared to the Knight, especially Royal Bloodlines French Knights. When it comes to a direct engagement, just A move on A move, the French Knights will win, without a doubt. And that is a concerning reality for Wham that he has to be wary of. That is why potentially more Desert Raiders may be the key for him in this situation. But, of course, with more Desert Raiders, he loses some raiding potential behind it.
And it looks like Wham is just fully committed to this Camel Lancer composition. Now, of course, they're armored units. They do love diving a little bit more, but you investing this much into it can be devastating. Beasty now extending a little bit too far here with the Knights and losing one at that, but you can see the raids are continuing. Wham, though, he's killed a significant amount of villagers, and the raids will keep on coming. Beasty now looking for a little bit of his own damage, going for the tower as well. One of the knights going a little bit deeper in, and another villager falls, but the camels are at the ready. He does need to back out.
Well, these distractions, though, for Beasty are instrumental. He needs to buy himself as much time as he possibly can for that economic scaling, for those upgrade scaling, which he still has a firm lead of. And he can keep chipping away with charges this way against the Lancers and the Desert Raiders. Healing is on his side. Wham did lose one of his dervishes. He still has one on the field and has that boosted healing if necessary. And he even looks like he might even pull a relic for a fight here, which is actually a very smart choice. It's gonna allow him to pick at least one fight completely on his terms, which is gonna be instrumental. Now looking to secure those southern berries, and a bit of a scuffed spawn on those berries. They spawned lengthways, looks like.
Oh, with a few deer there, this is definitely going to matter. We see those charges coming in, and Beasty is really hoping to make this work. Those camels, though, they have a pretty good charge in them as well, and they do make a connection there to the knight, but not enough to take him down. And these guys, they will heal. So usually this does feel all right for them. But we do see that Dervish trying to be the backup here, and the towers doing work against these camel lancers, but they are beefy, and the towers, they're just not hitting hard enough. Beasty is getting a few charges here as we see a few dead camels along the way, but now the knights are running towards the TC, and he's hoping that the TC creates a little bit of a safe haven behind this. The other group of knights, though, they're still keeping the food at arm's length. And unfortunately for Wham, this is starting to get out of control. He does have a little bit of a farming eco setup. Beastie is the one who's still very comfortably out here on the map on those external food sources.
Yeah, Beastie has just been magnificent with these raids so far. He's buying himself so much space and so much time. He shouldn't have even really, in theory, survived this long in this gameplay state. But as we mentioned earlier, his only real hope of comeback was to simply outplay Wham on most turns here, which in many ways he is doing with these raids, but this is what it comes down to, really, a decisive clash where Wham is like, I've had enough, and just wants to finish him, which seems to be the case. The Dervish is going to push away the Knights, but there's still plenty of arrow fire from those towers, and as we mentioned, the Camel Lancers are actually weaker than these Knights in that direct engagement, but the healing from this Dervish might be enough to pull through, and we see so many of those Knights are so low HP. You would love to pull them away soon and heal them, but it's easier said than done. Wham, though, has to be careful. You don't want to overextend too far deep here. You can look to get trapped because Beastie has recalled his raiding forces with his knights and looks to converge, but at the same time he's going to suffer plenty of villager deaths for it. Can't he wipe this mass, however, for those losses? It could potentially be the case. He traps so many of the camels, including the Dervish. A huge cleanup for Beastie. He has paid with 6 extra villagers' lives for it. At the same time, another raid comes through on the gold, and it's a big one as well. More villagers falling.
Oh, and Wham is just on top of Beastie in every single way. With every single raid Beastie thinks he's getting ahead, Wham says, watch out, I can do this even better. Now, 25 camel lancers. Beastie did send one knight over here to the berries, but it quickly got picked off. Now, the villagers here at the top also falling. 41 villager kills. Wham just has too many camels in too many places. With the food transition for him looking decent here, Beastie is floating a lot of food, and he doesn't have anything to make with it right now.
Yeah, it almost looks like he called in a guild hall, which would make sense if only there was one in this game. But it is not the case. Instead, he just has a huge number of knights, which we can see those green pluses. They're all getting healed constantly behind all of this. Whereas for Wham, he can heal too, but it's way slower and way more expensive to do so. Investing into those dervishes, which is exactly what he's doing now. And he's still just committing to the full camel lancers, which I just have to question here. I just think it's objectively the inferior choice compared to there's a raider against these bloodline knights, but it does afford him the luxury of always constantly raiding, which has also been great for him so far. Speaking of raids though, Beastie is also very well known for it. Gonna find some more plentiful damage on these berries. Tie up those economic kills a little bit closer together.
A little bit closer, you say, but he needs to kill 4 times that to be able to really get the same amount of work done here. Beastie now pulling back all those knights. The numbers in the army, it's not that massive of a difference, but every single raid Wham has ends up in villager kills. Beastie is just not able to deliver all of that. The camel lancers here, they're looking for that engagement. Beastie turns around and he does take the fight here, realizes maybe this is the one that I need to make this work. As we see a few knights fall to the ground, this is unfortunately just not looking that great for him. With those camel lancers, they might not seem like they're doing the best at these one-on-one engages, but they just absolutely destroy, constantly being able to dive under those towers for so much longer than your normal desert raiders.
Exactly right, and the strength of these camel lancers doesn't come from their direct head-on engagements, but they are arguably the best raiding cavalry in the game, outside of something like Mangudai or Sepahi potentially. The extended line of sight, as well as the extended charge range, as well as shorter cooldown on that said charge, and more damage the longer distance is traveled, means that they are excellent at sniping units from long distances, especially villages. And we look to see that charge utilized right now. Just see the sheer distance and duration of their charge. They just keep going. And if one of these charges connects, that's pretty much almost half the knight's HP gone, even with bloodlines.
And Beasty may have picked up yet another villager, but the camels are in position and they're going to do exactly the same. We see that charge coming on out, just as you said, another villager falling, and maybe another. These guys are just constant, and Beasty has no answer to them. They might fall, but very quickly, Wham is just remaking them over and over again. They get a little surround, get two of these, well, a bit out of position, but now these knights have so much work to do. I just don't think it's possible for him. The problem is, Beasty might not know how many villagers he's really lost against this, because by this point, Wham is the one just taking complete charge of everything. He gets a good surround here. A few of the knights falling as well. And the Sacred Side timer just now starting. And of course, it's 9 minutes out. But once you get that thing on the road, you give your opponent a little bit of pressure and feel like they need to respond. And honestly, he does need to respond. Beasty now sending a lot of his villagers out there onto the North Gold, and these are going to be so susceptible to these Camel Lancer raids, and we're now up to 50 of them. Myriad, this is the most disgusting number of Camel Lancers I've seen in my life.
I have never seen it reach this count before. It's quite outstanding, actually. The only thing we're missing here that is so rare, I mean, you pretty much never see this in 1v1s, honestly, but Golden Age 5. I want to see that extra attack speed on these camels, and then we're really cooking as well, that's for sure. But, speaking of cooks, there's berries here, or there were, and no longer because the clash comes in and Beasty charges in directly, but he is deeply overwhelmed in terms of numbers here. But at the same time, look at this, the distraction is going to come in from the north. And the Dervish is out of position there. The Wololo had been used, so he can't use that to his advantage. But that raid costs him his APM, and he loses plenty of knights on the retreat in the south side. Meanwhile, a raid going on behind Wham's base at the same time, as well as in the center on the Deer, and a raid by Wham on Beasty's gold in the north.
Now, Beasty may have killed quite a bit of villagers here, but so did Wham. Now we're at 52 villager kills. Wham is not letting up, and Beasty is putting everything together to try and make more knights. You see, villagers, as quickly as they come out, they just die yet again. With all those raid warnings popping around the map, you can easily lose your focus, and that's exactly what's happening to Beasty here. Those villagers might have control on the gold, but this is all they're gonna have access to. And we do see now camels are just looking for more kills. Wham says, I've killed 56, but I know you have more. Let's get that to 100.
It might potentially reach 100 kills by the end of this game. Definitely combined, I would say, but maybe even just for Wham at this rate. I mean, the French TC produces vills so quick that there's plenty to kill at this rate. As we mentioned, the Camel Lance is just excellent at raiding. And look at this. Look at the minimap of what's happening. Beasty is raiding in from the center, directly pushing through, but Wham is converging from every possible angle on these knights. He wants to trap them, and he wants to finish Beasty once and for all. Can he get the wraparound that he needs, though? Knights are running rampant through Beasty's base, killing any villager that crosses their path. And looks like Wham is trying to decide which angle to go in from. He wrapped camels around the south side, looking to cut off the escape there, leaves a few of them chasing, and now wraps from the north with the other side. Quick wall is being built up. That's exactly what he wants to do. Can it be finished in time? But he sacrifices more vills almost as a bait, I think, but they were headed for the outpost there, and Beasty re-engages towards the back camels chasing him, gets a few good hits there, but the reconvergence from the north is disaster for Beasty. Exactly the wraparound that Wham needs. Half of the knight count has been shaved clean.
And this is not a replaceable knight count. He's taking care of everything. We have 61 Camel Lancers. Beasty's population is not even 61 right now. He's killed a ton of villagers. Yes, 30 dead vills from Beasty has been brought here, but this is not going to be enough. Wham has absolutely obliterated Beasty's economy. He has no more access to any resources, and what happens after that is just more camels, and more camels for free. Wham must be feeling pretty good about himself after this, but we do see Beasty switching into a little bit more of a a food-conscious unit as the arbs are being made to deal with those camel lances, but this might just be a play out of desperation.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 arbaletriers to face the onslaught of 62 camel lancers. I think slow and steadily that number will build and we might get to the count we need eventually, but as to whether that's this game, I'm not so sure, because the double outpost now is under direct torch fire from those camels. That's 10 extra vills that will again fall for Beasty, and as that entrapment on the knights happened, the hopes for Beasty for this game were also trapped and gone, as Wham picks up the opening game here on Baldland.
And this is a massive pickup for Wham. Wham taking down one of Beasty's best civilization with a very interesting choice of camel lances only. And honestly, it looked like it wasn't going to perform that well in the one-on-one fights, and it makes sense, but that was not their goal. Their goal was raiding. Because if you're up against a guy who loves to raid, what better to do than to raid him yourself? And we can see that was exactly what he did here. He overwhelmed Beasty to make sure that every single alarm going off around the map is going to be the distractor that he needs to get those kills up and running. Now, Wham just looking absolutely fierce on this. And getting into that next match, though, we do see that Wham managed to snatch that Macedonians, and Beasty says, I'm not going to be dealing with the Taklak. Let's just do Macedonians and see how it goes. But with the HRE snipe, and I'm really surprised to see this because we haven't seen an HREW in a while at this level. A lot of people are saying HRE is just not what they used to be, but the choice being Delhi instead, I'm surprised about that.
It is interesting, right? Because I think our Frisian HRE has quite a bit of potential. The early economy feeds so well into either playing Dark Age or feed the expansion of those stocks, so they do very well when it comes to that. And you know, with access to so much food, we have seen this happening again and again. Something like a Burgrave timing on Frisian Marshes can actually be incredibly scary for those that don't put respect on it, and that's definitely something important, and Wham recognizes it, so he'd rather not deal with it at all. I gotta say, I'm a bit surprised the fact that Beasty actually opted for Frisian Marshes as his map of choice, because looking at these picks, Wham just has the better civs for it, I would say. Tuglak and Macedonian, 2 powerhouses. Tuglak very well known by now on hybrid and water maps with that fantastic economy and composition, carrying them so well. As Macedonians, I mean, they do great on land, but give them access to fishing, and that means even more Adari on the fields, or potentially even a heavy feudal committal, which I would say they are very capable of doing in this matchup, though we haven't seen it yet, if I recall correctly. Definitely looking forward to seeing that if we do get to it. But it might just be a fast castle anyway from Wham, potentially. It remains to be seen, but I think this matchup can be very exciting.
I'm a little bit concerned about the map choice as well, because I know Beasty is not the kind of guy who always chooses Frisian. And this brings me to the question of why he may have done this. So from all the other players, there's a lot of them that opt for Frisian because they have specific strategies. As far as I know, and as far as I've seen out of Beasty, Frisian has not been one of those safe picks for him. But I know the timer is a little bit stuck there on the screen, guys, but I have a feeling we are very close to rolling on in. And we'll see what Beasty's real plan is to try and make Frisian his own. Now, Wham with the Macedonian, we don't see any sneaky shenanigans for a lot of wood in the early game. So we're not going to get any war from the man.
No, which is interesting, right? I do wonder why this is the case. You might look for a very specific timing instead. Because, there we go. I guess Wham must have read this or something, because Beasty just goes straight away for the barracks opening here with zero hesitation. Doesn't even bother to actually scout Wham's side of the map first. He just deems that as the correct option. Which, I mean, you're against Macedonian. If you can get them off gold, that is always a good position to be in. But this is not a cheap and natural opening for the Delhi. This is tough for them to pull off without being heavily delayed. The barracks takes away the wood that you need for that mill to get wheelbarrow, for the mosque to start getting the upgrades there in order, as well as just your age up in general.
Now, Beasty does have a nice little scouting pattern to find exactly where that spear needs to land. He'll get the information needed here and see that the villagers are out on gold already. But Beasty going for that third spearman as well, which just means that the wood he could have used to get that mill is even further away. But now the spearmen will land and they will go and try to shut down at least a little bit of this gold gathering. And Wham does not have the gold needed for this just yet. He might actually need to get another villager or two on this gold to get that required amount. Silver being deposited also naturally, and the rest of the villagers being pulled to be able to get everything he would need. But he's doing quite a lot of damage here, and these Macedonian villagers, they are going to be quite susceptible to raids later on.
Indeed they are, and few better raiders than the Ghazi raider. In the name itself it says. As the gold needed for the age up is going to get accrued. No surprises there. It's pretty much impossible nowadays to actually deny the age up gold unless you completely catch your opponents with their pants down. Which doesn't happen much at this level, of course. But the Imperial Hippodrome is on the way for Wham behind this. And Beasty, he actually also invested into the dock behind this, so even bigger age up delay for him. Actually, he cancels it. The blueprint was there, but now it is cancelled, so recognizing this, he knows the delay would be too much, considering he also needs the mill, he needs the mosque. Yeah, it's just, it's too much wood. You can't, I don't think it's worth the risk against the early pump of horsemen. Then you have the scout with the torch damage to worry about. It's very scary, and it demands respect, so Beasty is going to place the respect needed.
And finally, Beasty getting that first scholar with the completion of the mosque. And now the upgrades may begin a little bit faster than they would have without Wheelbarrow finally being clicked up. But we're already 3 minutes into the game. This is going to be a very late Wheelbarrow here for Beasty. And now we do see Wham already moving out there, placing his blueprint. He is planning to get that gold back pretty soon. But at the same time, Beasty is not letting him do that. Myriad, I don't know if this was on our bingo card, but this is a Delhi tower rush.
Yes, you are absolutely right. It's actually a tower being built by the Delhi Sultanate in the Dark Age, no less, and with 3 spears behind it as well. Unprecedented here, but it actually makes so much sense, honestly. Just stop the gold. Right, that's what Beasty's thinking right now. No matter what it costs me, you will not have any gold this game. And if he can keep that up for long enough, I think that might be a win condition, frankly. Especially with the Delhi strength. Uh-oh.
The boys are pulled. He's got an archer in queue as well, but the villagers will be the target here. And the spears, they do need to be careful, but the villager is going to get surrounded. The scout goes down. The villager might just be able to finish this in time with a few hammer, and it goes in, and it looks like the spears are going to find safety in that. Let's see if he target fires these villagers. The low HP one gets targeted. 1-1 villager, now 1-2, and Beasty must feel pretty happy with this already.
The tower goes up and you exchange your villager's life for 2. Yeah, Beasty is very, very happy indeed, and that's a great result for him. And the pull was just too late there for Wham, and that costs him quite dearly there, indeed. The delay is significant. He can't actually produce anything besides the 1 Bogmathor that he already has on the field. But there's no dock behind this. It looks like he might be trying to move for it now. Yes, he does indeed. But there's no dock for Beasty either, to be fair, who's now aging up with the Dome of the Faith. Halfway finished, and Beasty... Oh, Beasty, you cheeky devil. He's blocking one of the optimal dock spots.
And this just speaks volume to what Beasty's name of the game is today. And it is deny, deny, deny. The spearman getting into that tower, he just wants to make sure that those arrow fires are going to be annoying as can be. But with this, Wham is very happily putting down a dock that doesn't block any of the fish. Hippodrome Scout doing an insane amount of damage, and the spearman does pay the price. We do see Beasty instantly trying to target fire that archer instead, because of course... any champion that comes out of that hippodrome is going to heal itself back to full in no time.
That's right, and the extra torch damage on that scout means that any kind of fishing play that Beasty would go for is going to be heavily threatened. Probably part of the reason that he hasn't opted for it yet, besides needing the age up in quick time, obviously. Scholar's now officially in production.
we do have a little situation, guys, that just occurred. So for those of you wondering what just happened is Beasty crashed the moment he aged. Oh, yeah, the moment he aged up, he crashed, and we will be doing a remake on this game. And honestly, as far as remakes go, this one is one that I would say is the most normal remake you could find for the craziest game. So we're gonna head back to the lobby and then get that game remade and see how it goes. But that was crazy! To get a remake on this situation is wild. No, the thing is, you can't give this in favor of anyone because Beasty killed those 2 villagers. He denied so many resources. I actually think he might have been slightly ahead on this in a way, but at the same time, Wham could argue the opposite, saying, yeah, I got what I needed out of this already. So that is a pretty crazy situation. My goodness.
Yeah, it's unfortunately a sad reality of the game as it is today. Sometimes there's just a chance that this happens, particularly on age up. This can occur and has historically occurred a few times, and lo and behold, sometimes unfortunately it happens during very crucial moments like these where there's a very quirky beginning to the game that has big implications down the line in that feudal age, but all of it is null at this point in time. So we're going to go back to the drawing board and start from the very get-go. But yeah, there's absolutely no clear lead there. Remake is the only possible choice to make there. Of course, it would be great to have another option, but hopefully that's in the works.
Now, this is the question that people usually ask about remakes. What are we supposed to do in that early game? Are we supposed to play out this thing out in the same way? What if the spawns are different? Of course, there are so many variables here. And now, Beasty, seeing how that early game landed, does he opt to do exactly that? But what happens then for Wham going for the gold a little bit earlier? I feel like this is a back and forth that you have to ask yourself, do I go in with a fresh new mindset? Or am I going to do exactly the same thing and hope it works just a little bit better?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Whenever there's something interesting like this happening in the Dark Age, as to an unusual opener, it always begs the question, what does the mind game look like between the two players in this? Like, is he going to do it again? Am I going to do it again? He's going to expect me to do it again. So he'll prepare for it so that I won't do it again. But then surely he wouldn't expect me to do it again because it's so wild. So let's just do it again. It's radical. So I'm very curious to see how that will go. But yeah, so, I mean, nothing really happened early on, right? So that's significant.
What's pretty wild to me is just the fact that we have had, I believe, Wham in quite a few situations, Beasty especially, in a lot of situations with these remakes. We have a few players that they get targeted by the remake curse, and unfortunately it has come to this cast today. But ladies and gents, it is time for us to roll on in and see if we're getting exactly the same opening. But guys, this time we're getting a different bug with Beasty and Wham's names just spawning completely opposite from before. This time, Beasty opts to go for a little bit of a dock play himself.
Yeah, so we have one Omar up against Easterbeer in Frisian Marshes this time. That is Sultanate in the yellow. And Wham. Okay, I'll stop. In the color purple, as the Macedonians. And I wonder what we're going to start to see here, as straight away the differences are clear. Beasty opting for the dock this time round, and this makes complete sense. You can't really do the same thing you did before, or do a slight variation on it. I mean, you could, theoretically, but it's always going to make you wonder as to whether your opponent's preparing for it. So he just opts what seems to be really the best thing he can go for, in my opinion, which is this dock.
Now, Wham definitely going to be scouting to see if any shenanigans are happening, but pretty standard opening here. Doesn't pull anything extra onto the gold. He knows that this is no longer a threat, and Beasty is the one going for that first fishing boat. Now, Beasty getting that wheelbarrow up, which is pretty good here, as the deli just loves getting their upgrades in as quickly as they can. And last game, he definitely did not have that opportunity, but the sheep amount is pretty wild here for Beasty already.
Yes, a lot of very close sheep spawn here on Frisian Marshes. There's some very predetermined places where the sheep can and will spawn. and knowing these will always yield you a very good amount of sheep indeed. It's pretty much impossible to get sheep screwed on this map, maybe just a little bit by a few sheep out towards the center and edges of the map, but early on, no issues whatsoever. As the dock is already up and pumping with the free scholar inside of it, that is Delhi's bonus. Any mosque or dock built initially will give a free scholar, and that's just the very first one you build. So it's going to make his fishing ships produce even faster. And now already up to 2, and the third one will come out as well. And Wham, still opting for what he did last game, the very fast age up, which I would say in this position actually favors Beasty a little bit more if he can get a good turnaround time to his age up.
We have to see how much he invests into this water as well, because you have to understand, if you're playing against Macedonian Dynasty, they get the hippodrome, they start making horses, they start raiding, they shut down. And Macedonians, they're just such a good tempo civ here. Beasty is definitely going to need to be careful with all of this, but he goes for that 4th fishing ship on the same pond. And now I'm feeling a little concerned for him with that bit of extra investment on the wood, because it doesn't look like he's pulling off anytime soon. He's going for that second dock as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think on Frisian Marshes, if you invest any more than 3 per little pond, it gets a little bit of in the over-investment territory, especially when you know you'll be under pressure, because you can only garrison 3 of those fishing ships, right? That's going to be quite a problem indeed when it comes to being raided, especially considering he's already behind in terms of age-up timing because of said dock. Now moving on to his second. He could, in theory, look to get up as many of these docks as he can before the actual Hippodrome Horseman is a threat. He could even get 1 more, maybe, but then gold will become an issue. The idle time on the fishing will become an issue, and addressing that will be a bit more difficult, considering that Ghazis normally do very well, but these aren't just any horsemen from the Macedonians.
A lot of them buffed by their champions that will run alongside them. Now Beasty nowhere near clicking the age up just yet, and Wham is very confidently already making that first horseman. So this is a pretty slow start here for the Delhi, but at the same time, you want to capitalize on this economy as much as you can. And we'll see if this is the right amount for Beasty. And we see him going for yet another dock with that villager making his way all the way to the furthest pond. And it doesn't look like Wham is aware of this at all. But that first horseman, let's go see where he lands. It looks like he's heading straight for the base. So possibly going to be going straight for that goal to shut down any bit of gathering that may be on Beasty's mind. And he doesn't have a lot here. So if he loses control of this goal, it becomes a really quick snowball into a no scholar life. Power of victory, though. Oh, never mind. It was a misclick. I almost got excited here.
Yeah, that was gonna be a Monk S moment there for a minute, I think, if it was a Tower of Victory. But yeah, I'm a bit surprised to see Wham not actually keeping his scout towards Beastie spawns just to look for that villager pickup. That's always a very nice little way to get an early lead on this map if you manage to get it. Instead, he's going to push off the gold, which is admittedly also a great thing to do. Limiting the scholar production for Delhi is a surefire way to slow them down and make their game harder.
Now, with that singular horse on here, he's sending the rest onto their next destinations, which will most likely just be shutting down these ponds. Now, for Beastie, who's invested on these little lakes, and we see with 4 fishing boats, you feel like you want to capitalize on this as quickly as you can. Those fishing boats, though, remember, they're of the spicy variety, and they barely do a bit of damage, but it's going to be enough to just ward off that singular horseman trying to do the damage. Now, Wham, he's still making horses, and Beastie, I just see more fishing ships coming out of him. This is very, very risky. Now, finally, a barracks being placed down, and this is usually not the opening building you see out of the Delhi Sultanate.
There is merit to it. This is one sort of strategy you can go for. Some say it's a very dynamic, specific thing, where only in some matchups, in some situations, does this sort of thing become semi-viable, where you intentionally age up pretty slowly and look to get as many fishing ships as you possibly can to get that significant eco boost up against your opponent. And then you are on a delay, but eventually a few minutes down the line, you'll be able to severely outmass your opponent. but there's a price to pay, isn't there? And it already started with one fishing ship going down. And it's not like behind this Wham is complacent. He has enough cavalry just to be very annoying, deal damage, and at the same time is consolidating his own economy behind this. One dock is already up and running, second one on the way now.
And this is getting to a very sore spot because Beasty getting a bit of idle time there on his ships as well. He just not being able to focus on every corner here. Another fishing boat paying the price. And this is starting to spiral out of control. We now see the horseman numbers getting to that scary amount where a spear does not dare step close to them. You can see he's just trying to get as much as he can, but the dock is definitely the target here, and he's trying to delay that as much as possible. But unfortunately for him, the spear numbers just aren't coming out quick enough. So the horses will get the burn on this, but at the same time, Beasty is everywhere and nowhere and just fishing all around.
Exactly right. That's the power of this Hippodrome Scout. So quickly do those fishing ships get burnt, and the docks are no different either. And spears do counter horsemen, but not when it's a third of the army value in that regard there, present in this current fight at least. So they're going to have to be very careful as one does get picked off, but the horseman dies as well in turn. And the first pawn is already down for Beasty, and this is the kind of risk you run into. That's one of the struggles for Delhi on this map. On top of there only being 2 sites, sure, you're decent with fishing as Delhi, but you're naturally already very slow because of the design of your technologies being free and taking long to upgrade, needing so much infrastructure to get those upgrades running, and of course needing constant scholar production to keep up as well. Abusing all these factors, Wham is securing himself quite a sturdy lead here, I have to say, and now keeps investing into the military, knowing that eventually Beasty will catch up and will look to contest those sites, and when he does, he wants to be ready.
Now he is getting a ship to actually counter this, and that makes a lot of sense. You need every bit you can to try and save this food economy. Yes, you've got other docks up and running, but every single thing you lose here is going to skyrocket for your opponent. Macedonians, they love fighting in feudal, and you are giving them exactly that. He's now getting a handful of upgrades here too. Getting that next ship as well, getting a dhow onto this lake is going to be so critical in making sure he does not lose everything. The villager now making his way onto yet another pond, as we see a lot of wood in Beasty's arsenal already. The dhow is out and he will be fighting against those. But the villager is ready to turn and go and repair. But the dhow, he needs to be careful. He's standing in the range of the fire, and the fire is obliterating the ship. But the fishing boats come in clutch and repair as quickly as they can. It is a little bit of a destruction both ways.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of wood is being burnt here by Beasty to repair the dhow, but he's finding great value with the dhow. So much damage dealt on those horsemen. Shouldn't be too unhappy with himself about that. One of the fishing ships does fall, but I'd say that was actually worth it there for Beasty. But the dire news has hit the field. The champion has arrived. The Redari champion. And this guy, yeah, he's a raid boss for sure in this feudal age. That's going to make it very difficult for Beasty to take any fights. Luckily, he does have 13 spears on the field, and Wham's archer count isn't too healthy just yet, and that's significant for him. But there's another disadvantage here still. Wham doesn't seem to have any, at least for the melee infantry as well as the range units. We can't see in the UI the cavalry upgrades, unfortunately, but looking at Beasty, he does have double blacksmith up, but his upgrades are far away still.
Now, getting pushed off of that gold early on definitely slows down the pace of the daily here. But you can see Beasty is floating a lot of food. He's got the resources to build units in the food department. The problem is just Wham is in a pretty good spot here as well. He's making sure that he gets control of these little lakes all around, and eventually will run into a few of Beasties as well. So now Wham just sitting back. He stopped making units now for a second, and now we ask ourselves the question, is this just because he's going castle? Because Beasty is thinking exactly the same thing. Starting to stock up on those resources. The Ghazis, though, they need to be careful. If he loses these, it is going to be tragic. It's just not something he can live without. He needs to try and keep this army as busy as possible.
And going Castle Age as Delhi Sultanate without having even touched the sacred sites is always a very weird position to be in. Not necessarily terrible. We've seen this work a few times in the past, in very specific cases, but I'm not sure if this is one of them, frankly. He's going to have the lead with it, for sure. House of Learning already on the way with 12. Wham! I don't even think he's going to start the age up before Beasty finishes it, which is a great spot to be in. And he has plenty of archers and guards on the field to contest Wham, at least initially a little bit. But Wham's age up is not far behind. He's going to have crossbows from the Golden Horn Tower. He's going to be able to produce Redari at that point, so even more power to his raiding. And Beasty, typically Delhi can pick up the relics with extreme pace when getting to this castle age, but Beasty doesn't currently have the map control to do so.
Usually Delhi at this point, they're very confidently moving around here, but Wham, he's the one in charge. And now the spears are looking straight at those Ghazis, and they get an impale situation. Few of them falling like flies. Beasty just losing focus for a second here, already showing us what that could mean for a person. Now he does spot Beasty's dock here up top, and Beasty's dock definitely got a lot of food for him here, but this was something he needed to keep going. It does look like one of those fishing spots has been completely tapped out as well. So he did get quite a bit of value from here, but you have to ask yourself, was it enough to push him forward? Right now it looks pretty even, but it feels like Wham has complete control of this. I just wouldn't count Beasty out just yet because he's got an elephant on the way, and we know what those elephants are going to be able to do.
Exactly, the first elephant that's hit the field. That's definitely going to keep Beasty safe, but he wasn't under too much threat of a dive directly. That's probably the main reason for that elephant investment. It's a great way to immediately kill any dive underneath you as Delhi. But that threat is not here. However, he can now mobilize his forces very effectively around that elephant, and that's always going to be a really tough army to crack as long as that elephant's alive. The second one is now in queue for him as well. But this raiding cavalry from Wham has been a thorn in Beasty's side all game long. And again, his attention pan is stretched thin. 3 more fishing ships fall just like that. And 12 have now fallen for Beasty at this stage. But not far behind in economy still. It's because of the sheer investment from him thus far. Wham is still adding docks even at this stage.
And Beasty, the rest of his docks are secure-ish, but you have to ask yourself how long until those start running out now. Now, with that spearman army, he feels a little bit more confident to move out here, but keeping in mind, all the spears are standing together, and the horse numbers are still very, very scary, running right around them, straight towards the base. The golds, they are going to be right there, the next target for these horses, but the spears, again, he's out there on the map trying to find something, but what he's going to find is nothing, as the army is ready to hit over here. He does have his elephant here, so he should be able to pull back and not lose too much. And that's exactly what he does. The reaction speed, pretty fast.
Seeing that elephant, Wham gets confirmation. Yeah, there's no raiding this base anytime soon unless I want to get trapped by that elephant. And that's not a party he wants to be present at, I'm sure. Scholar, discovered with the relic, is going to do a Panic Wololo, but of course double Panic Wololo at that point in time, but none pay fruit, of course. The spears do meet the cavalry, and they skirt around the edge. Very slippery indeed, and manage to just get away. Relics now. Beasty has managed to secure 2 of them, but Wham didn't start collecting his yet, fully focused so far on the upgrade commitment, the dock commitment, as well as military commitment as well at this stage.
Now, I'm a little bit confused seeing Beasty not constantly spending all his resources on units. Because this starts to smell a little bit like an Imperial to me. And at 16 minutes in the game against the Macedonian dynasty, it feels like a very brave move. But Wham does get a little bit of a wraparound here on some of the vills, but none of them go down. And the elephants are in position. few of the horses pay the price of their life and does need to pull back. But Beasty, he's thinking about Imperial. And just with that food economy he's built himself, this is going to be crazy, Myriad.
Honestly, I think it's actually so smart to go Imperial Age here for Beasty. It makes so much sense. The Redari count hasn't reached critical number yet, and neither has the crossbow count. The silver is rolling in, but it's nothing that he cannot handle just yet. It's only level 2 upgrades are now starting to come in. We have it for the archers, the range units, as well as the cavalry armor and health now coming in as well. And this is all on par for Castle Age, right? You can only have up to 2 at this point, including a Feudal Age one. So because of this, Beasty is not under real threat of dying just yet. He has to be so careful with how he splits his economy. He has the war elephants to keep himself safe for the most part. But Wham, I think, smells what's going on. He sees just how defensive Beasty's playing. And we've seen Beasty do this many times. This sort of war elephant defense play into fast imp. It's very recognizable by now, I have to say. A lot of players are sort of seeing how this is played and know to do something about it. It looks like Wham is now spotting it as well, but Beasty recognizes the danger he's in, and I think he knows that there's just not enough time for the Palace of the Sultan to actually bail him out in this position. But we've seen Anatan before use the Hisar Academy to great effect. That can be an immense amount of food income for you as the Delhi, an almost complete farm transition.
Now, Beasty's economy is going to not be as necessary with these elephants popping out like that. This is going to be a pretty good defense for him, and you can see him trying to beef up a little bit with a few men-at-arms. Ooh, he cancels them. He cancels the men-at-arms, and I don't know what the move is from there, but you can see him getting a bit of resources in the bank here, probably just to add more elephants to this party. We see him getting a little bit of an elephant upgrade or 2 in there as well. But the horses are looking for blood, and they are going to find at least 1 drop of blood here. I say, as I curse this villager to stay alive. The age-up does get stopped, but only momentarily, as the spears are in position to try and fight back. But the 28 archers are doing work. Now, the moment Beasty hits this age-up, he does need a little bit of breathing room to just get those upgrades. And Wham, it looks like he's giving him that. We do see the tower now coming up. Wham wanting to go Imperial himself, surprisingly. Just not ready to make that massive push that we do see out of the Macedonians in Castle usually. So I'm excited to see how Wham takes this and tries to capitalize on that Delhi timing taking so long.
The landmark choice here I'm quite curious about as well for Wham. The mercenary, what's it called? Foreign engineering company, just like the Byzantines have, could be a great choice here. Of course, you can get royal cannons from the foreign engineering company, and that's going to do great work up against those elephants without a doubt. At the same time, you could go for the Palatine School to get the best cataphracts in the game. But Macedonians actually have better ones than the Byzantines once all of the upgrades are in, but they do cost silver to do so. So, you know, you want to spend your silver on upgrades, not necessarily on cataphracts. So that might make Wham more prone to go for the engineering company here, because the bombards, the cannons will be amazing here against the elephants.
Now, what I'm a little bit worried about here for Beasty is those mangonel towers. Now, we have seen many players, even at the top level, just losing games to these mangonel towers, especially with such a heavy archer mass. And we see the Beasty is still investing into these archers himself. He knows that with these archers, he's going to handle most of what Wham's army has. But we'll see how that works against all of the cannons that he will be providing, trying to take care of the elephants. But the elephants at the same time, we have 4 for him. And this is wonderful. But the Ghazi Raider switch is going to be a little bit of a surprise here. And I'm wondering if he's going to use those to just try and raid and do just a bit more damage to keep Wham under control. Because how does this play out late game? To me, it feels like the elephants versus the cannons. The elephants might just reign supreme.
It's a tough to call. This is a late game I have not seen before between these two civs, so it'll be very interesting to see it play out. It's going to be very, very good. And there's so many crossbows on the field as well as archers for this Ghazi transition. Makes a lot of sense. We've seen Beasty do this to great effect in the past, getting that elite status on the Ghazis, as well as biology, which is in queue by now, as is incendiary arrows. Just there's a whole shopping list of upgrades there for Beasty, but luckily for him, it's all for free. And they're all going to come in very, very soon for him, with 20 scholars in garrison and 8 more in queue at this stage. How does he even have the gold for this, actually? I guess it's still that secondary gold that he has access to.
With the 3 relics, it doesn't feel like it's enough gold to sustain this, but he shows us that it actually is. And more stables coming out. This feels like Beasty is putting himself in a spot where he's making as much as he can, trying to get these upgrades as quickly as possible. He gets them. But now, if he loses this army, it doesn't feel like it's that easy to replace. I would like to take a look at his TC so we can see the farm placements around, but I think Beasty, he is just cockroaching in his base right now. And this Beep is helping him do so. He's trying to get those walls up to make himself a nice little corner for himself. But the food transition, I wonder if there is any.
Yes, every minute that passes, Beasty's getting so much additional value from these free upgrades, but at the same time, the exact same is true for Wham. Every minute that passes, we see already upwards of 800 silver per minute. He's just gonna get more and more of these premium upgrades for his units. It really is a game of cockroaches, isn't it?
Now, you have to keep in mind the Sacred Site victory is also approaching. And sure, there's still 7 minutes on the clock. But these are guarded by mangonel towers, so they are not going to be an easy feat. And a lot of scholars in queue. Beasty is nearing pop cap at the moment, and more elephants are on the way. He sees what's important, and elephants are the name of the game, especially against this huge amount of Radari that Wham is trying to switch into. So, with Wham's composition, he's got a ton of crossbows, hoping that they can perform miracles against these elephants, but the bombards, they're moving into position to try and snipe down some of these towers that Wham is so comfortably placing around the sacred site.
These sacred sites are what's probably going to determine this game, actually. Mangonel emplacements, so well known for their oppression for so long. The sheer amount of AoE damage is absolutely stellar, but against so many big, singular, beefy units like these elephants, the AoE damage doesn't do too much. There are 2-3 cannons even on the field here for Wham. A good count, but not enough really to face so many elephants. One did go down pretty quickly, however, because there's also 40 crossbows behind this for Wham as well. The army's looking very scary here for Wham, I have to say. Good range found by Beasty. Gets some counter damage done towards this mid-map. But with so many emplacements and outposts, those Ghazis can't stay there for long. Upgrades are coming in quickly here for Beasty. Biology is already in. Incendiary arrows now finishing as well for him. Howdah's as well has finished at this point in time. Not that he has any ranged elephants, so it doesn't matter too much, but eventually he might. And with so many scholars on the field, they might all be soon enough polled to challenge this site.
Now he does decide to go the other way, seeing that huge investment onto those mangonel towers. Both his bombards paying the price as well. But you might say that it was just a little bit of eco damage. Those Ghazis cleaned up so much. We're nearing that point of the game where the fishing ships are starting to go idle, so they do get removed from these compositions. But what Beasty killed there was pure villager potential for Wham here. Now Wham's resources, he's spending every single bit he can on those Radari, and 26 Radari, 51 crossbows. I know you're saying that the elephants are great, but are they great enough to handle that?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not so sure that they are. Not without Sultan elephants, at least, because, I mean, with so many crossbows, as well as already 4, soon to be 5 cannons, we will see these elephants melt, even with the biology, even with the healing. There's too much dedicated firepower against them. Now, if there was some Sultan elephants in the mix, that might be different, but of course, if there was a Sultan landmark there, there'd be a lot less units for Beasty instead, because he wouldn't have this stellar food income that we're seeing now. So it's always one of those difficult positions to be in. Hindsight is 2020 at the end of the day, but you never know in the moment, and it seems like that moment as to when we will know is getting closer and closer, because both players look to be itching for a fight.
And we see Beasty here trying to get some siege down, but the sacred site is at 3 minutes. And now he's going to need to start making a move pretty soon. Wham is not in a position with the resources like Beasty is. Beasty technically quite ahead here in terms of the resources. He could potentially make a move here. And if he wipes some of these units, remake them, and try to take that fight yet again. But we do see now, he's sending those Ghazis to their death. The archers spinning, going a little bit too far forward here. They might be sacrificial to just get a few elephants on the way. But it's a very strange sacrifice to make. He's nowhere close pop cap just yet.
Yeah, it almost looks like a blunder, right? But it was definitely a sacrifice because instantaneously the two tower elephants are queued up. And the tower elephants, they are fierce indeed, even more so than the war elephants in terms of damage output potential. They do a crazy amount of damage. But the issue is that, again, the 6 French cannons, outside of great bombards, these are the best gunpowder siege in the game. And Wham has 6 of them. That's almost one-shot potential for these elephants. And they also do great work against the tower elephants, of course.
Now, Beasty did an insane amount of damage to this economy of Wham, but this just means that Wham is reinvesting in units. And right now, there's 2 minutes. Beasty needs to make a move, and he needs to make it now. As one bombard completely out of position, the archers are doing their best at just focus firing down anything. The Radari not able to clean this out at all, but the elephants are now stepping forward, and they need to make their move. We do see those cannons doing a little bit of damage to that elephant, and honestly, slightly bruised.
Yeah, the Grand Pole is here. Wham, I think he even deleted villages, if I'm seeing this correctly, just to remass even further. Makes sense, because it all comes down to this. I wouldn't be surprised if Beasty posts his entire economy for this as well, potentially. He can always go Imperial a second time anyway. But so many scholars, every relic is being brought out just to make sure that this goes through. And just look at the sizes of these two armies. We haven't seen such a big fight in a while, I think, in these games. As the charge from the elephant comes through, they go directly forward. The Radari are standing at the ready behind the range line as the kiting ensues. Damage is being dealt, plenty of it. Beasty has a lot of his own bombards as well to challenge the cannons, but the cannons are better and there's more of them. The Radari look for a double flank. One comes from the north side. The first Wololo is cashed in to divert the Radari. The elephants are melting to the crossbow mass as well as the cannons, but the scholars are actually doing a great job in keeping up the health bars initially. Second Wololo gets pulled as the Radari come in again, but the scholar gets sniped, and this time it's mixed among the mass, so it will not fall this easily. More Radari towards the north side, cutting off the reinforcements, and some split off troops towards that side, and it looks to be a cleanup. The Radari are too strong. The backline is too potent. The cannons, the elephants are falling by now. There's nothing left for Beasty in this fight.
Well, Beasty is decapping the sacred side. He has some units standing on top trying to decap this. But you have to look at the resources. Beasty might be able to make a few more units here. We do see that fight extending on the sacred side, but it feels like a little bit too late with all those Ghazis falling. Beasty has the ability to replace some of the army, but it is too much. And Wham takes the W in an absolutely insane game 2. This was in Myriad. I cannot believe that we saw a fast-ish Imperial go against the Macedonian and almost come out alive here. But Wham, he definitely knew how to respond to this. Those towers.
Yeah, it's the towers, right? And great panic under pressure, I would say, here by Wham as well. I mean, Delhi Imperial Age timing like this is so scary for so many civilizations. We've seen just how amazingly Beasty plays this strategy so many times, but Wham understanding this and keeping cool under the pressure, recognizing, okay, well, you go Imperial Age, I can just do it too. And not overextending, not feeling the need to push into so many elephants, because that's often how you can spell your own doom, really, by being overzealous to try and punish it. Not often is there room to do so, but Wham recognized his lead, the fact that he has the map, he has the units, he has the control of those sites, as well as 2 relics behind this, that he can just go toe-to-toe in Imperial Age with this. The timer had been ticking for a while, then if he just holds the control, then he should be in a great position to close it out, and he proved that to be the case.
Now, this is a big hill for Wham to climb. For the last few sets, Beasty has completely dominated Wham in these last few times they've met, and now this is Wham's time to get revenge and show that he is still ready to take on the Beast. Now, Wham got for the next game JD, which I'm really excited to see, because on front range, JD has been absolutely pumping. Now, though, Sengoku on the side of Beasty, this also doesn't feel like a bad pickup for him, especially considering front range. He's most likely going to get a lot of value out of these Yatai quite early on.
Yeah, it's quite a spicy matchup indeed on front range here. Like you mentioned, JD JD, honestly, any map where you can be sure that there'll be a lot of fighting, a lot of aggression, JD is always a fantastic pick in these cases. Few civilizations benefit as much from just repeated fighting as JD does. That level up system, when that level 3 comes in, it's not as disgusting as it was on release, but it's still very potent indeed, and it can easily win the game in some situations. And I can see that being the case here, right? I mean, Sengoku, they're a very potent civilization and incredibly strong in that castle age especially, but this might be one of probably the hardest map in the current competitive map pool to pull off a fast castle age.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they don't necessarily mind fighting with Sengoku in the feudal though. So maybe Fast Castle will not be that simple, especially with the lack of resources. But you have to keep in mind, Sengoku doesn't really struggle with the lack of resources. With the Yatais, you have a pretty safe answer for a lot of the food. We have to wonder, is Wham going to capitalize on the fact that Sengoku likes to be a greedy goose civilization in the early game and get that boar in the middle? Now, Sengoku doesn't necessarily go for Dark Age aggression, but I don't think they mind it either. Because just like Japan, they have access to some pretty nice units out there quite early. And if Whams wastes his time going all the way to the middle, just being shut down, this could definitely be worth it. So both of these civs both can benefit from that boar. But, you know, as Sengoku, you just want to play it safe, get those Yatais and outlast your opponent and outscale your opponent as well.
Exactly. It will come down to that feudal age because, like you mentioned, Sengoku is so fantastic at fighting as well. And in theory, they can have a great composition for it. The Yari alongside the Spearman both can be buffed tremendously through that Daimyo mana system if so Beasty chooses whichever one he opts for. And we spoke about this before, right? Knights and archers against Cav Spear. It's fine in theory, but you have to be so careful where you go, how deep you go. Because before long, Shinobi are on top of you, you're slowed down, you do less damage, and the game's over. Just like that. So Wham has to be very, very careful about how he approaches this, even though in theory, this should be decent matchup for him, I would say, on this map especially. But theory and practicality are two very different things.
I've asked about this matchup. I've talked to Beasty about it, and I was wondering, what do you do when you're up against a Knight civilization as Sengoku? And I'm going to repeat this again and again. Yari. What about if you... Yari. Just keep making those Yari cavalry. Because eventually you do overwhelm them with your movement speed and your ability to just get in, get out, and just be a little bit safer with those little shinobis that can come on in and slow down anything. Ninjas are the way forward. But for the rest of this set, Beasty has to do a reverse sweep here. Otherwise, he's completely cooked. He's got Hillendale in front of him. Wham still got some pretty massive picks for Hillendale. We have Byzantines. We have Golden Horde here too. Wham is not an unhappy camper if this goes to a game 4. Socotra as well. He's got some pretty great civilizations to pull out. And Beasty has a big battle in front of him. I'm just surprised. He's one of the few players who constantly picks up that HRE and still believes in the life of an HRE player.
Yeah, him and the Spanish brothers, I've noticed, also like to... Sometimes Marine Lord too likes to lean sort of as a back burner pick here. HRE is still very reliable, right? They still have the same mode that they've had for a while now, which is... They're not great at anything, but they can do pretty well anything. So that can be invaluable on a lot of these maps, just as a little wildcard pick. It can do good. So we'll see whether that comes into effect soon enough. But for that to matter, Beasty has to win this game, because if he does not, he is eliminated from this week as we load into front range. Potentially our deciding map here, but never say never, as Wham loads into the game with JD in the color purple, facing Beasty as the Sengoku Daimyo in the color yellow on the south side of front range here. A very closed map, yet still a very aggressive map despite that here. The creation of Avely, one of our finest map makers available. And with the Yatai already coming out, you see there's plenty of food for the Yatai to go on. 2 boars in the center are ripe for the picking. Wham could potentially have looked to go on them as well, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Even JD can do a great job tanking there, but he didn't opt for it this time round. But notably here are the golds. 2 small golds is all you get at the very beginning, and that's it. That's even less than a mid-size gold, a singular one. And the rest of the gold that you have access to is all the way in the mountains. This is what makes any kind of fast castle play so difficult and almost a death sentence in most cases on this map. You simply cannot have the gold, and even if you secure your gold, you have 2 of them to secure, and they way smaller. Combine that with small wood lines, very limited food, only 4 sheep a side, and it's a recipe for a lot of action.
Now, Beasty opted to go for the gold directly, right? We see this with Sengoku. When they have normal gold sizes, it's extremely popular to just go for the gold and buy your yatais with just trading in for the wood. On this map, I'm quite surprised to see him doing that, because this is a lot of gold that he's pushing into wood. And this is just going to mean that the gold on that side is going to disappear so fast. And now Beasty, he's telling us it's still worth it. Now, with the 3rd yatai coming out, we can see him spending all that gold yet again to get that next yatai. This is going to mean that Wham, even though he went for the wheelbarrow opening, his age up is going to be ahead of Beastie's. And with that comes knights. Beastie is going to need to do some pretty hard work to stay ahead of this, especially considering that those knights do not mind fighting their way against a little yatai trying to get some resources. So he sends that 3rd one. It looks like it may have some plans to be stepping out all the way to the mountain. Never mind. He just wants to sit on the berries, get what he can inside the base. The mountains is too risky at this stage of the game.
Oftentimes I find that the yatai is a big determining factor into the strength of Sengoku. The discovery of said yatai on these food sources can make or break this civilization, and facing French knights in the feudal age is definitely very scary for that situation. But with those knights on the field also comes the potential for overzealousness and overcomfort by Wham, which is also when Sengoku can really punish with those shinobi, with the faster move speed of his cavalry once he gets that Takeda clan daimyo going. Still a little while away though, as the school of cavalry is soon to finish, but only now is Beastie starting to age up because of the investment into the yatai. And that's a scary thing, right? You have to invest into at least 1 or 2 yatai as a Sengoku, otherwise you're just behind from the get-go. But often that leads to a delay, and a delay against such a sharp feudal timing with such a strong civilization like JD, it can get very scary indeed, so Beastie has to be careful.
Now, with the School of Cavalry finishing up, we instantly see that knight being queued, and JD is going to be ready for some action. Now, he knows that he's up against Sengoku. That takes a long while to get going. We had a ton of villagers out there on wood, where Beastie is trying to get just enough so that he can start building some, some sort of unit to handle a knight raid that will be heading his way. The scout, Wham, knows exactly where he needs to land. And we see the wall already coming up there on the wood. As Beastie knows, the night raid is imminent. The night raid goes straight for the scout, though, and the scout attacking that mining camp. Not just for him to burn the mining camp, but rather just to ensure that his opponent, when he manually clicks for the drop-off, those villagers are going to want to repair the mining camp instead and just waste away a little bit of wood of Wham's.
I've been in this situation before as Beastie, going for the 3 yatai Sengoku up against French, that was, but JD is very, very similar. It does feel like a pretty difficult hold. The timing is very punishing. I mean, already we have 2 knights on the field, and Beastie only now has finished his age up. So it's quite difficult. Oftentimes maybe 2 yatai might be better. That's what I thought after that game. We'll see if Beastie handles it a little bit better here. The first yatai is under pressure. No real threat initially from 1 knight, as long as the yatai is not very far. As you can see, it is very tanky indeed, even with the body blocking.
Now, it means that Wham doesn't spot that actual first yatai that we now see is sending the trader back, which gives him that 5% boost. So that first yatai was not spotted, and Beastie will get that 5% boost on his wood economy here at the back, and that feels pretty good. He does need to be careful here, as the knights are looking for a little bit of damage, but both these other yatais are just looking for a safe haven to keep generating some resources. Now, Wham he is looking to move out on the map, as we now see JD going straight for that ball. He knows this is going to be safe food for me and not for thee. But the answer that Beasty gave me about Yari is exactly what he's doing as well now. Getting those Yari out is going to mean he's going to need to micro them perfectly against these knights.
Exactly right. That's the composition he needs initially though, right? I mean, the Yari, it's always good to have them. You need to be able to exert some map control, but if Wham just doesn't produce any archers, which definitely can be standard for JD sometimes, skipping archers altogether due to that consecration discount, even better than the French in that regard. It means that he might not go for archers at all, and that's a devastating cleave already there for Wham. So much damage dealt on the spearman. One falls, and already some XP is fed over to JD. And this is a terrible position already for Beasty, honestly. It's starting to bleed spears so early. This is exactly how the knight count can get out of control very, very quickly.
And those villagers are ripe for the taking. They're standing there in the wood line. The knights are ready to charge, and charge they will. They don't get that second hit off just yet. Perfect micro here with the spears. And nobody goes down just yet, but JD is coming in to strike, and she gets a villager kill. And the villagers falling yet another one. It is a destruction, as we now see the shinobis trying to slow her down. But the second Yatai is getting the trader delivered, ensuring that he gets a little bit of work himself. Now, the Yari cavalry looking for their own version of damage.
A lot of idle time has been caused there for Beasty, and JD's rebought back straight away. It's a decent enough victory, killing JD there. For the price of 2 villagers, I'm not sure it's worth it exactly, but you need at least a little bit here as Beasty, and he certainly got it. And Wham invested quite a bit of gold. I think it's 100 or maybe even 200 at this stage to actually buy back JD. We can have a look at the or 250 even. So it is a lot of gold. It's a lot of gold, and you can see the price is being paid for that. Not a single economic upgrade in for Wham yet, which is... honestly, you never see this as the French or JD for that matter, that discount is so potent for them. But Wham, going all out on the aggression here so far. Now going for chivalry as well. There's plenty of low HP knights there. Not a single one has died, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe one actually has died. And speaking of, the Yari. Shinobi might be on cooldown, otherwise these Yari could deal with this knight alongside the Shinobi.
Now we see Wham having the vision on the side of Beasty's forest as well. But these knights are a menace, and that's the beauty of mobility. You're just going to be able to control your opponent so well. He does get a villager kill himself, and Beasty on that boar actually shutting down at least a little bit of it. And we can see the Yari numbers now starting to matter, as they are just that bit cheaper than knights. When your gold is this limited, you want to make units that are not that gold intensive, and Wham doesn't have that luxury at this point. Now, Beasty, he needs to do just a bit more damage here. He did get a little bit ahead with all of those food trucks delivering, getting that extra bit of a boost onto the economy. But still, this is JD. She scales pretty well. This woman, she just didn't get all the experience she needed just yet. Now that gold is running a little bit thin, so Beasty is going to need to think about getting that rest of the map control.
Yes, indeed. That first gold is going to run out very soon, and second will be on the menu for Beasty, and he can pivot towards the northern side of his base. As another little group of knights comes in looking for blood here. Meanwhile, Akira clan has also went up now for Beasty, so an additional 5% health on his Yari. Under the influence of the daimyo here. Does have also access to, I forgot the name of the upgrade, but it does make these Yari into some of the fastest horsemen in the game, and able to easily exceed these knights' horse training. There we go, plus 10% movement speed. Very useful little upgrade for them. Beasty actually, Wham, sorry, getting very bold here with the raid, moving in behind Beasty's base now.
And
looking to idle the whole wood line.
He gets that, but he doesn't get any kills just yet. The villagers, they do need to pull back and be careful, and this gives Wham that information he needs. Beasty is out on the map for food. Yari now falling a little bit, and the thing is, Wham's gold is the one that should be suffering out here. Now, the villagers out here, they are a little bit stuck here in a hole, but luckily the shinobis are there to make sure that the knights do not find any kills, and Beasty is the one finding the kills on the villagers. Here from the back, he's killed 4 total already, and he spots this archer transition.
Yeah, this is a very big and significant dive here by Beasty. Fantastic damage, found exactly what he needs in this position. Also catching the archer switch as it happens and picking off the initial numbers. You can see how fantastic that food economy is here for Beasty. Those yatai working overtime as well as the boosted berries. All of these are great tools here for Beasty, and his army is now actually looking very, very scary. Trimming off these early archer numbers is very significant for him. Now adding out the boar as well. The only thing he has to be very mindful of is this isn't French, right? You can sort of match numbers a bit better, but any fight you take hurts all the ever more for every unit you lose. Because once that level 3 is in Feudal Age, most civilizations have such a tough time dealing with it, and Sengoku is one of them as well, I would say.
Now, I would like to take a look at that Matsuri the moment we can, but there's a bigger raid about to happen. We can see the knights are looking for a connection. Villagers standing quite far forward, but they do pull back, and we'll see if they... No, never mind. The knights need to pull back. They don't want to lose anything, and we see 20% on the Matsuri already. That means that these villagers on the wood lines, they are working 20% harder than the rest. And it's starting to get to that point where Beasty is feeling pretty confident about this economy. He's got his walls up, his base is pretty safe, and Wham is the one who's slowly walling out there for the rest of the map and moving on to these suboptimal resources like the berries. But Beasty is in for a little surprise, guys. The villagers in the corner, they're about to get surrounded, Myriad.
Yeah, that's a lot of villagers to trap, but at the same time, it's a precarious position for Wham to go into here because his exit is only from the way he came in, and the spares are there almost in time. The slowdown from the Shinobi is painful, but he manages to get out just in time without losing a single knight. That could have been devastating there for Wham if he didn't pull out just... You know, if it was a second later, that could have cost him 2-3 knights. Instead, it only cost him 1, it looks like.
Now he's got another one just causing a bit of havoc here. And maybe Beasty reads this and says, hey, a wall investment into something a little bit longer may just be what I need here. Now you see Wham feeling a little bit more confident, moving out onto the map. And Beasty, he's got the horses to burn down that wall. But it is going to signal Wham that he needs to move his army in position. Wham now switching to a little bit more of an archer composition here. With the knight numbers he's got, he's in a pretty good spot. He just needs to find a way to deal with this in the Castle Age, as that's exactly where he's headed. But Beasty, he's got the same idea.
Indeed. And looks like both players are kind of content with playing for this Castle Age, realizing that neither side can really commit to the other without a great price potentially being paid for it. Wham has established control over his mountainside here in the north, but is being challenged by Beasty, although his knights are there just in time as the wall breaks to push them away. Singular Knight looking for a little bit of errant damage where he can find it, as well towards the southern side, but they're just met by a lot of angry spears. Sake Brewery is on the way now for Beasty, and this is such a great landmark on this map, especially with the limited exposed gold. This gold is infinite.
Now, getting this style of raids for Beasty is going to be so critical to keep this man in his base and force him to keep making units. And that's exactly what Wham's doing right now. He's making units. And making units now when your opponent going up with the Sake Brewery is not what you want to do right now. But he doesn't realize that this is not just a feudal age Beasty. And with a few more knights in his arsenal, he is going to be able to launch a pretty good counterattack the moment the Sake Brewery is done. But the spears are in position. And Beasty is feeling pretty confident about this, getting that second daimyo as well, ensuring that he can get the barracks upgrades instead. And I'm actually so surprised to see this. Now, of course, you do have a lot of spears here. That makes a lot of sense. But usually the archer one is so important to most people. Beasty just says, it is not important to me. I need to get my spearmen even better.
Yeah, there's no archers for Beasty in this case, so that will not be an issue for him. And he already has the undermesh right at that stage, so it works out. But on top of that, the plus 5% health from the daimyo on the spearman as well. Add to that secondary ranged armor, which Beasty is getting now. And he can actually just start diving TCs with impunity here, underneath Wham's economy, who Has some spears, some archers on the field, sorry, to make something happen here, but just look at the difference in amount. It's overwhelming advantage here for Beasty in this game, and he's looking poised to take it.
And with Mounted Samurai alongside, this feels like a pretty deadly push that's about to hit Wham's base. You can see Wham pulling all of his units under his TC. Now, Beastie is the one out here looking for a few stray villagers, just as Wham had done to him. The Royal Institute is being made there in the corner, but is Beastie going to spot it? Now, the Royal Institute, again, not a landmark we've been seeing a lot of, but Beastie tried it a little bit earlier as well, and it just did not land. But it might not land, and it might be punished. As we see the Royal Institute being spotted, but does Beastie react? He doesn't realize. He sees it, but he doesn't. And the Royal Institute villagers, they are working so hard and will not be punished just yet.
There's no way he's getting away with this. I was about to say, that's crazy. And the wall is not built either. He has to delete it, but it's too little too late. These units are faster, especially the Yari. He can call in the Shinobi maybe, but it looks like it might be on cooldown, which is why it hasn't been done yet. I know I would have been foaming at the mouth to Shinobi that lot of villages, that's for sure.
Now, with this connection here, the Spearmen are already upgraded, standing there at the front. Mounted Samurai are going to be the next wave of attack that Wham needs to prepare himself for. And the Archer mass that he's making is definitely ill-equipped to handle that mass about to arrive. Our Mounted Samurai standing at the ready. 3 ready to be the front line here. But we can see that Wham just doesn't have the gold to get all those knight upgrades that you would want from the Royal Institute. But never mind, the Royal Institute is gone and all your upgrades don't exist.
That is just brutal here for Wham. Not only there's no point to that landmark whatsoever besides that Royal Bloodlines upgrade, which is just not going to happen this game. So Wham is in dire straits at this point. Only now is he getting his undermesh for his limited archer count. Beastie can just A-move at this stage and actually just completely overwhelm the entire base here from Wham if he so chooses. But this is the deciding game for him potentially, whether he stays in this series or gets eliminated. So there's no reason for such risk. He's going to play it smart. He's going to play it calculated. Going to look to push Wham off of this food in the right side here and slowly lead him out bit by bit.
Now, with this heavy mass of Spearmen, the Archer numbers may look good, but Spearmen, you just need enough of them. Going to be breaking right through those knights. He fights under the TC. JD finally gets quite a bit of experience, but a little bit too late, as she now will hit level 3, but the spears are ready to impale anything that comes out of this woman. And the spears on the villagers there at the back, we just see them falling like flies. Now at 15 villager kills. This is starting to feel like Wham is the French that we saw in that first game. And finally, Beastie is the one taking his first W and telling us that this is not going to be an easy feat to do. Now, JD is still very much alive, and there's been a lot of losses, but Wham is holding strong. The Archers trying to focus fire everything. The second wave of Daimos coming in. Spears, they have arrived and ready to kill even more.
Yes, although most of Beastie's numbers have been cleaned due to this heavy arrow fire, most of it being spears, so much damage has been dealt. The entirety of Wham's knight count virtually has been reset. JD has fallen. Idle time to a ridiculous extent here for Wham as well. With 15 vills in the TC, that's almost half his economy that went idle. Plenty of vills running around and dying at the same time. Beastie is looking in a fantastic position. And now the full switch into the Mounted Samurai comes. And these Mounted Samurai, sure, with Bloodlines, the French Knights initially will be better, but just get Takeda Clan level 2, then 3, and suddenly these Knights, these Mounted Samurai, will make short work of the French Royal Knights.
You can see that Mounted Samurai, he's got some boys in his vision, and he wants to take him down. But there's a wall, a very smart Wham wall that he built there to ensure that nobody will cross the line with all these vills. They are now getting ready to get even more food. But the Samurai, he doesn't really care about these knights. He just wants to do as much economic damage as he can. And he finds yet another villager. Beastie now, he's got his farm transition going. The food per minute is looking a little dire for Wham with all that idle time. And Beastie's farming is just going to go skyrocket from here on out. Now the Iki monks are coming in too, which means Beastie is going to start picking up those sacred sites or sacred sites, relics, you name it, just to make sure that the gold income never ever runs dry alongside that sake brewery he has.
And at this stage, 4 walls are now starting to engulf the map here for Beasty. Looking to fully secure his side, so no slip-ups from any knights can go by and cause havoc in his economy. I'm looking to remass as well, recognizing that with these mounted samurai in the field and so many of them, Arbaretria might be enough to bail him out, but is it too little too late is the question. He does have some of the infrastructure set up. Consecration makes that possible. Cheap these units are for Wham indeed. So is he going to be able to mass up more than he normally would, as the French, for instance, if they didn't have a keep?
Now, it does look like Beasty's wall is going to take a little while here with those 2 lone villagers trying to build this. The archers, they're definitely not going to be a match here for the mounted samurai, but the shinobis are out and they're going to slow down these knights who are now ready to die. JD just stomping on the ground, healing up everyone, hoping to get them to safety. Shinobis apparently just not fast enough to make it work, but they do throw their next set of grenades, or try to at least. They do get blocked, yet the archers, they are feeling like they could take this fight. JD and the knights ready for this as well, but the damage reduction from the shinobis just doing wonders here with everything falling apart and Wham calling game number 3. It's now 2-1 for Beasty.
Yes, desperately needed win here for Beasty, and he manages it in great fashion, showing immense control under pressure there. Despite those hiccups at the beginning, he stayed cool, calm and collected and managed to gather up his forces, secure his side of the map, and then eventually allow his economy to propel him forward and eventually win out this game against Wham. Now, only 1 game behind from tying the series and then being on even grounds here. And this is good for Beasty. Now, Wham, he did exchange JD for Sengoku, which is also, from a draft strategy perspective, something he is probably more than happy with, honestly, in this position. It's a very strong civilization for Beasty here, which he should win with, and so he did here on front range. But how does it look like from here on out? And interestingly enough, we have Hill and Dale as the next map of choice here for Wham. And he opts for the Byzantines and Rus, gets allowed the Rus, and in exchange he actually snipes out Jushi, letting through Beasty's China instead. And this matchup, I think, is very, very exciting. Historically, it has gone again back and forth repeatedly. In the peak of Pro Scouts, most people would say this favored Rus. Nowadays, Rus has been relegated to more of a very specialized pick for some maps, namely King of the Hill. It's been such a long time since I've seen it on Hill and Dale, but I know particularly the Canadian brothers actually think that Rus still does very well against China. So I'm excited to see what he has in his mind.
Now, letting through China is definitely a first here, as we see a lot of people instantly banning that out. But the Byzantines ban from Beasty's side makes a lot of sense. Byzantines, it feels like you do need to shut them down in Dark Age, be able to rush them, do something to shut down the berries and the gold. But with Hill and Dale, that becomes very difficult because, of course, you've got the back berries sometimes, you've got the back gold sometimes, and it just means that if the woodline doesn't spawn in your favor, you are going to struggle, and that investment just can't pay off. So Hill and Dale, you don't want to be dealing with the Byzantines that loves just sitting back, getting a bit of breathing room, and having safe food sources to skyrocket them into a fast castle as well. Now, on the China, we definitely have ourselves a pretty open type of gameplay. With China, you have a lot of options. We have been seeing a lot of aggression from China, but on Hill and Dale, I don't think we've seen it in a while. This feels like one of those first year of AoE 4 matchups, but just on the Chinese side. Yes, actually, Hill and Dale was one of the first maps in rotation as well. This is an age-old situation, but China used to go for Barbican, used to be able to just sit back and get 2 TC up. Nobody could do anything to them. These days, how does China play out on a map like Hill and Dale?
The map is interesting here because it's not the best for Rus, honestly. You have the initial wood lines, which is fine for your cabins, but straight away, one of the day packs, this is historically why it's not great here, one of the day packs is removed from the equation for you. You cannot get the opponent starting a day pack, and they always have it available. So it takes away some power from them. they're not very reliant on gold, so you're not too worried about the center gold as early as other civilizations are. But you can't effectively expand your cabins either, because the wood is also off of the initial hill inside the dale, so to say. China, on the other hand, China is China, right? They will always be great on most maps. Hybrid, water, land, they're almost like the new HRE. They just do really, really well everywhere, pretty much, frankly. And Hill and Dale is no different in that regard. But this matchup, from what we've seen recently, it essentially comes down to, can China flood enough knights into Rus's base and do enough damage to offset that horse archer mass before it gets out of control? If the answer is yes, Rus tends to die. If they do not, China tends to die. So that will be interesting to watch unfold.
Yeah, especially with Rus. Oh my goodness, I'm in love with the horse archer lifestyle, of course. With Rus, you have a lot of options now, though, and they're not in a position where they even need to think about gold for a lot of it, which is crazy to me, because both these civilizations, they're happy on 1 gold and just living their best life. Yes, it's great when you do get to go out. China does that a little bit safer, though. So both of these civs really hold their own in the world of not needing too much gold, especially with all that hunting cabins. You know, the great thing about Rus getting nerfed, it hasn't been nerfed to death with regards to the hunting cabin gold generation. So it still feels very viable to just spam as many units as you can with that passive gold while getting your upgrades. So yes, but before we go too deep into Hill and Dale, let's leave that game for this. I want to look at the possibilities of Socotra after this. If we get the next game, guys, we have ourselves a situation here. Beasty has Zushi, House of Lancaster, and HRE left here, which, honestly, I'm expecting a House of Lancaster pick, but what do you think that second one would be? HRE?
Both could be good. I'd say the safe bet is probably Jushi. Jugenu on Socotra. I don't think you can go wrong with that, to be honest. That seems like a good choice to me. But then there's Byzantines for Wham, and Longbows always deal with that, of course. I don't think Beastie will let Byzantines through, though. Wham's likely going to go for the Golden Horde, I would assume, instead on Socotra, which I have not seen before, to be honest. So that's going to be interesting for sure.
And this is something where I'm really excited to say, guys, on the first day, we saw a lot of English being picked and banned, and I was honestly shocked. Every single time someone picks English or bans English, I think a lot of the people just get a big question mark on their foreheads, thinking, what is happening and why do I not understand this meta? Both Wham and Beastie saying, no, this is not really a problem for us. We know how to handle this. And especially on a map like Socotra, we do see people thinking about that type of English lifestyle they may have. Neither of these players opted for this. They say every other civilization that we have in our roster would be a better pick for that. So, Myriad, why do you think this is so different when we look at the top 16 versus the top 8? Why is English and Abbasid all of a sudden an option at that level?
Is it, though?
People say so.
It's one of those cases. I think outside the top 10, let's say, comfort picks become a lot more common, I would say. And that can really impact a lot of these drafts. Players, it's more important, I think, to feel very content in the way you're playing, rather than theoretically what is the optimal approach a lot of the time, because no one's really going to play optimally. I mean, sure, outside top 10, people are getting pretty close. Like, we're good, right? Surely. But it's not quite there in terms of effectiveness and consistency. So oftentimes just playing what you know really well can be better than just playing what is typically considered factually as being really good. So that is why we do tend to see that quite a bit. Mind games can also be a big part of it, which might be a part of this game as well, potentially.
Now, both of these guys are going straight for the deer lifestyle, which makes a lot of sense. As China, you want to get that mill in a spot where you're gathering the most gold you can. But this opening for Wham does mean that he needs to go for a little bit of gold himself. Manual gold for a Rus is not something I thought I'd see today. But, of course, this also means we see a little bit of a different playstyle coming out of Rus, especially on Hill and Dale. A previous game that I watched, we also only had one scout. Usually, we're so used to seeing Rus having 3 scouts just going around picking up every single sheep, and the other civilization being the one who's like, hey, where did all the sheep go? But in this case, Wham is the one who only has 2 sheep attached to his scout. Let's take a quick look at Beasties and see. Oh, I thought that scout was completely forgotten, but Wham quickly realizes we did see a lot of sheep move out there, but at the same time, Beastie's scout is out there on to the west. Also just got 2 that he went for that second round as well. No pro scouts, definitely for Wham.
Yeah, I mean, on this map, a lot of the food is already secured for you, right? Start with so many sheep right next to your town center. There's only a very few out on the map in the Dale. I think about 4 aside, 6 aside maybe at most. So sheep problems aren't very significant here early on. And Beastie capitalizing on the deer straight away, of course. Now, the question of pro scouts I think is very interesting here. Because for Wham, would you pro scout for one single deer pack? I seriously doubt it. And are you ever going to seriously get Beastie's deer pack on the right there towards the corner? I also seriously doubt that. So that makes me wonder. And with this Kremlin placement, oh yeah, I think we're going to see something pretty interesting here.
And finally, a little bit of a different play, but Beastie is fully aware. He sees this age up and pulls out his little book thinking, what did we do in 2022 again against something like this? And we're going to be able to find out, as Beastie knows that this is an old school style of play. Myriad, what happens with the Kremlin? Has anyone made the Kremlin in any of these practice games that you've been in?
No. Well, months ago, yeah, but not anymore.
Okay. But he cancels. He cancels.
Oh, what?
Okay. Just to replace. Not too serious. I was about to say, is this a bamboozle? No bamboozling today.
But that's a big delay on Wham. It's very significant, and the placement, well, it makes sense. It's for the wood line, right, to extend the influence. But that's such a big delay. And what's the plan besides this here for Wham? Well, the macro suggests a fast castle here, which seems to make sense, but do you even need the Kremlin to do that? I don't think so, honestly. I feel like Golden Gate is better in this case. You're not under any real threat, but yeah, this is unprecedented.
Wham setting up a new meta for us to learn from, but he's going to be so ready for that castle age timing. And Beastie, he actually gets to respond with whatever he pleases. Now, with a ton of gold income, because that's the beauty of China. You get the taxes, you have 3 on gold, but at the same time, your imperial official, he's working overtime. He sends 2 more to gold. He's like, you want to go fast, castle? Then so will I. Now, with Abbey of the Trinity, Wham definitely has a strange little timey he could pull out here. And Beastie is fully aware of that. Him now also going for that fast castle, and unprecedented indeed, as we're getting a brand new meta discovered here. But Wham, with that Kremlin cancel, it does feel like he might have blocked him from getting that perfect timing himself. Because with Beastie, he's playing a Civ that ages up at the speed of light. So now we are up for a pretty strange one.
Indeed, exactly. Very close Wham is getting, but because of that delay, he might even need to slap a 3rd village onto that landmark to be able to match the timing correctly here. Beastie is just going to follow suit. He has his imperial officials, 2 of them out by now. That is how the economic lead has manifested. But there's going to be no Barbican. There's going to be no pro scouts. It's just going to be what is... This is like the most classic fast castles we have seen in a long time, isn't it?
And honestly, Beastie standing here looking at 5 villages on gold, he's feeling like, hey, I've never seen this. I didn't know that Rus villagers can gather gold this early. So, Abbey of the Trinity is spotted. Beastie is aware. And you guys need to notice what Beastie is doing here. With that scout, he's going in and he's attacking every single building where resources can be dropped off. Now, why is he doing this? Because, of course, when those villagers are forced to drop off, they're instantly going to start repairing. Earlier, Wham had 30 wood. Because he forced the drop off, or he tried at least, he used 3 wood to repair those buildings. And that just makes sure that your opponent doesn't get those optimal little trade-ins. Abbey of the Trinity now coming out with 7, while the Imperial Palace put down the corner for vision. He's going to ensure that he knows exactly where units are going to try to run in. Now, Beasty, what does he follow up with? Now, if we can take a quick look there at Beasty's base there, Mr. Vodka. I want to see what the production building is, but I have a feeling we are going to be getting some really nice lances coming on in. Because with this Imperial Palace, he is going to be able to see stuff. But is he going to be able to contest the relics with any other unit? Of course, when you have the monks from Rus, they are just going to run a little bit faster. And you can see he's trying to get the walls up already because he knows what the risk of a fast castle China is. And that is going to be lances. Look at that stable coming in hot. You can see the Imperial official already ready to supervise. Now, with this, we see that queue up instantly, and he needs to find out where could the knight be, or where could the relic be picked up first. Archery range coming on out as well, but this is not your standard old horse archers. Guys, I say that with second archery range coming out, and this is going to be a dirty one.
Indeed. The first warrior monk is going to hit the queue, and the first lancer for Beasty now is in queue as well. This is such an old school style of play, and I'm all here for it. It all comes down to this. Back to our roots here in Age of Empires 4. Now, the horse archers, without the benefit of a lot of food underneath that TC, matching the count here for Beasty's lancers, who are also getting supervised out from that stable, is going to be easier said than done. Now, the Kremlin is going to help keep him safe somewhat, so that removes part of the threat that Rus often faces in this situation. But is it going to be enough, really? Considering that there's also no high trade house, the economy here for Wham isn't as strong as it normally is for Rus. You know, the Chinese economy is always fantastic underneath that Imperial Academy with the officials. The very first monk already gets spotted out and start to get chased down by these lancers.
And they are so expensive to lose here because, like you said, there's no food. There's no safe food for Wham. He's got that first deer pack that's already been depleted, and now he's got nothing. He has what he has under the TC, and these handful of horse archers are going to struggle to out-micro this. But it does look like the monk gets out alive, and the horse archers are ready to back him up.
Question is Knights going to be on the menu here for Wham at some point? In theory, it's great, but in practicality, affording that, well, good luck there. Easier said than done for sure. Now, with effective enough kiting, although horse archers are definitely weaker up against armored units than they were before, still they are able to kite them when there is no charge for the lancers, as we can see here manifesting shortly, as the warrior monk is also used to give inspiration, the saint's blessing, giving plenty of additional stats for these units. I believe it's damage and armor, if I'm not mistaken. All very useful stats indeed. Second warrior monk about to join the fray here, after the first one had fallen, to once again turn the tide of this battle, but Beasty already slipped off into the night with that relic.
And that was the whole plan. He didn't care about these lancers losing their life. He just wanted to make sure that the relic gets out alive. You can see Wham already having that monk clicked on the relic as well. He turns around, a little bit surprised about it being completely gone, but the lancers, they are paying a bit of a price here. But again, Wham, the food income is just not looking good. He's going to need to move out to the western side of that map to get those berries and the deer to be able to stay in this. 12 horse archers, it's fine, but it's not good enough. He does deny that relic, at least for now, because nothing is going to be allowed in Beastie space pretty soon.
The horse archer numbers are swelling pretty quickly here for Wham. Now over double Beastie's lancer count, even though initially it wasn't looking that great. Of course, lancers more expensive than the horse archers, way easier to mass them. And Beastie does need plenty of gold to do so as well. Although with so much in the bank, makes you wonder what he's cooking. There's a lot of food there. Was he maybe going for a Yuan dynasty there? That would be pretty crazy. But it would make sense for the pagodas, for the relics.
especially him snatching 3 relics away against Abbey of the Trinity, this is mostly unheard of. And I think Wham, experiencing this, is asking himself, did I just mess up completely? Those horse archers are going to need to land some real damage. But we see, with him still being in Tang Dynasty, he also gets the +1. So Beasty is most likely going to try to get some damage done instead of just transitioning into a China boom civilization. But look at those horse archers. They are peppering away at these lances. And Beasty has to ask himself, what do I build next? Because right now, these lances are not going to last forever against this. Now, he's got a lot of gold here, access still here, but he has to think about what is next. Wham himself also, he doesn't have the high trade house, so he cannot just rely on that passive gold. He's also going to need to think about going out onto the rest of this map.
Central Sacred Site now under direct capture by Wham as he looks to consolidate his map control, which Beasty is lacking a fair bit right now. That corner on the right, however, is an amazing lifeline for him. The boar, the deer, as well as berries, all available for him if only this wall goes up. He has fantastic visions with the Imperial Palace there, giving him plenty across most of the map even, but this entire southern arc is under his control in terms of vision. Now Wham, up to 3 warrior monks, and these warrior monks, not only do they make a great front line, but the buff is even more significant. Wham maybe getting a bit overzealous with his push in here. He doesn't even have steeled arrow in yet. Meanwhile, Beasty has both his ranged armor upgrades, which means that, look, these horse archers are tickling these lancers even with this count.
And the Barbican of the Sun, just ensuring that this base is extra safe for Beasty. Horticulture now coming on in. And with the Song Dynasty, this is going to feel good. Beasty is going to get those villagers even faster. And with this economic comfort he's got, he should be in a pretty good spot. We see Wham already transitioning into a handful of farms here to just keep this food eco up and running. Because, of course, this is now where everything starts to run out. But those horse archers, they keep on pumping. Now, he's also getting a little bit of an HP boost for those bad boys. Beasty switching into an archery range here. So now with him being in Song Dynasty, Zhuge Nu definitely won't feel too bad against this horse archer composition.
They certainly won't. Even with something like Boya's Fortitude now close to completion, the sheer damage output from these Zhuge Nu is way too significant for these horse archers to ever handle in a direct engagement, as long as the count is there for them. Meanwhile though, Wham just keeps swelling the numbers, so far content with it, and this might be a pretty classic ruse strategy of a virtually endless amount of horse archers into an Imperial Age, and then you get the trifecta: incendiary arrows, silk bowstrings, as well as biology. Triple uni-upgraded units, that's never something to underestimate, and that's especially true with these horse archers. Although that is some ways off still, it looks like the game is headed in that direction, because it seems like both players are quite focused on a defensive perspective here. Beasty especially, of course, with the clock tower now also going up to give him the Yuan dynasty. That's a boom if I've ever seen one. But on top of it, for Wham here, there's no second TC for him yet. Only the sites are being captured for now, but he wants to make sure that he keeps control of this map.
And you can see the control right now is, it doesn't look like it's completely in Beasty's hands, but he's the one who's killing villagers. He's out here on the map. He's the Wham from the previous games. But Beasty still has to be careful here. That's a lot of horse archers, and once they do break through, they can be devastating. Thing is, they just need to find a place to break through, and right now Beasty's base looks like it's locked up pretty solidly. We do get +2 farming upgrade here too, and the 2+2 ranged upgrade, which just means those Zhuge Nu are going to be devastating, but a few of the villagers fall. 7 villagers falling like flies, and very quickly Wham equalizing that count, with Beasty losing focus for just a second.
Yeah, horse archers shred through villages better than ever before. So Beasty has to be extra careful, especially having skipped Song directly now. He's not going to have that passive boosted villager production, but he will have access to the pagoda. And we can see the numbers there. A fantastic boost in economy. For the 3 relics he has, this is perfect. Pagodas are absolutely incredible. Every single one generates just over 300, I think, or maybe just under 300 resources per minute passively, which is just incredible.
And this is
Alright, just
going to
under.
feel... Yeah, he's going to have a nice time with all of those resources. And honestly, he needs this. These horse archers right now, they have control of this map. And 42 of them. Beasty deleting his own wall. Trying... Oh, actually, he's just going right through. The Sugar New, they're in a bit of a tough spot. They don't have the numbers just yet, but they are cleaning up quite a bit of these horse archers. The problem is, these horse archers look like they want to go straight for the base. And honestly, they might actually get quite a few kills here. Beasty just doesn't have the units for this.
Yeah, Beasty might have misread the situation slightly. Wham has been continuously, non-stop, investing into these horse archers, whereas Beasty, he was ready to set up for an hour's game. He was booming the song into pagodas. Not a single additional unit has been made since then, except this switch into the cheap Juganu, which get caught as they come out the range and then dying. And now Wham finds an excellent choke point here to trim these lancers down to the very last one. Even Relic is getting now pulled. Beasty is going to try to get it into the pagoda quickly. The income is fantastic for him, but his base is just off limits now.
Now, he does manage to put all the pagodas, or get all the pagodas pretty stacked here. And behind this, it does look like he's going to be okay in terms of getting those resources up and running. We can see the horses are being made and put into a little bit of a safer spot, but the villager count is again in Beasty's favor here as he manages to pick off a few of these on the board. Problem is, he's running a little bit low on the food and he's about to get a surprise attack. There's no wall here.
Oh, but he sends it. Yeah, the Imperial Palace providing much needed respite for him, but these villagers are trapped. Zuganu are quickly swelling in number, but still only just barely half over the count of these horse archers. That's not a fight they can really win. Although with the horsemen, this could potentially be an entrapment situation here. Wham might be in big danger.
Wham is going to lose a ton of these horse archers, and the thing is, he just isn't ready to replace all of them. We do see a nice round here. The horsemen are going to do an okay job. They will take a few victims along the way. Beautiful kiting here by Wham. He's trying to do as much damage as he can without losing all of them. But this is going to be a pretty tough one as we see that herd thinning pretty quickly here. Juganu doing a ton of damage and more following suit. The horse archer numbers are now dwindling completely, and the damage that Wham needed to do is just not there. Beasty now switching into horseman mass is a pretty smart move here. You don't have access to any of the big golds right now, but you do have your pagodas, and that is just enough.
Yeah, getting those pagodas online before that initial entry from Wham is absolutely what keeps Beasty alive in this position. That income is absolutely tremendous. 750 total resources per minute passively from those three. It is unprecedented, and it is massive for Beasty in this case. You can see that horse archer count is now non-existent, frankly. Second TC is in for Wham behind this, so he's going to start scaling his own economy, taking the economic lead at this stage in terms of villages, but definitely not in terms of income. Maybe just slightly, actually, having still access to that boar and more access on the map, also to the sacred sites. But the granary transition is now on the way for Beasty, and plenty of them dropped already.
And this is an interesting moment because Wham kept him under control for a while here. A pretty great move here with those horse archers. But it allowed Beasty to go and get a ton of wood. And that's exactly what he did. He used that time, he got himself some wood, and now he's the one who's in a very happy spot with that farm transition. He knows about these horse archers on the side. He gets the emplacement on his tower there as well, because he knows that the horse archers in mass, he's just not able to handle that with the units he has right now. But the knights coming in from Wham, they are going to turn the tables just a little bit. So he does need to be careful with all of those.
Now with the scaling behind this for Wham, he's not as reliant on finding the damage that he has already been finding so far to close out this game. Now when it comes to late game, I would say that these two late game titans, old school titans, are actually very evenly matched when it comes to that. China has really good siege, but so does Rus. China has amazing hand cannoniers, but so does Rus. And Rus also has great horsemen besides it. I would pick Chinese hand cannoniers over Streltsy any day, but then again, Rus does have the better cavalry. So when we get to that stage, if we do, it'll be very interesting to watch it unfold. But it looks like Beasty He's already feeling confident enough to push out towards the center here, but there are knights now on the field, and Beasty doesn't have crossbows yet, so this needs to be respected.
Now we do see with the amount of horses he's got here, it's not a massive front line, but the Zhuge-Nu, they're doing a pretty good job at handling this. Wham does not have that +2 range defense yet, so the Zhuge-Nu will match up pretty well against these knights from him. That's the beauty of Zhuge-Nus. They aren't crossbows, but do they feel good? And especially when you have 52 of them, it is nothing too shabby at all. But Wham's eco has to be respected. He has that second TC. Sure, the food situation is not looking as good for him. Beasty needs to make sure an attack lands, and it lands hard.
Gonna split up the horsemen towards the north, look to challenge that sacred site, and maybe even get a raid if he can. Of course, Rus do have those fortified palisade walls, so they're way sturdier than regular palisade walls. And Wham now does have his secondary ranged armor in, so if he wants to pick a fight, now's a great time for it. And I don't know why, but Beasty is still not moving into the crossbows, which I think is becoming an increasingly bigger problem, because already up to 20 knights Wham is nearly, and yeah, the Zhuge-Nu still have great DPS, but with warrior monk inspired knights here, they're gonna do 1 damage per bolt.
And this front line is non-existent for most of it. I don't see the horses of Beasty anywhere. The Barbican provides a little bit of protection here and beautiful emplacement work, as we can now see. But you do need to look at Beasty's resources here. He's cooking something spicy. Those horses, they might not be the front line, but they have other plans, and Beasty is going for a keep. Let's go see where he places. Oh, he puts the keep right in front. So a ton of villagers being pulled to the front, as he knows the horses are responding to his, and they will be able to pick off a bunch of villagers here. But this opens up the map for Beasty to place that keep and get control of the big gold, so that that army is just so much healthier. So we do see that keep coming down. That's just going to mean getting into that base is even harder.
That's the long-awaited gold access that Beasty desperately needed. This is the hard part of Hillendale, being able to secure that second gold. For a lot of civs, that is where they lose the game, and being unable to do it is just disaster. But Beasty finds the move to do so with a fantastic raid on the north side, pulls Wham's forces away, but he does trade a lot of his cavalry for it. And Wham's military advantage is absolutely massive at this stage, with the value telling the whole tale, really. Now, Imperial Age might be on the cards here for Beasty, but Wham wouldn't be far behind. His own economy looking great behind this. And yeah, the keep is up on the gold, but look at Wham. He's gonna look to try to go around it, and the crossbow count is now finally starting the build, but there's no horseman to hold the line against these knights, and the crossbow count is not there yet either. This fight is gonna be disastrous for Beasty.
Yeah, and he's taking it. He feels confident in that, but with no frontline, these are going to melt. He needs to pull back. The knight numbers are so scary. 22 knights. Wham has invested everything into this. But if they die, Beasty's got the economy to remake these. The production is just not on his side with all these Zhuge-Nu. They're trying to focus fire on the horse archers, but the Zhuge-Nu numbers are thinning out, and Wham looks like he is in a commanding position. Push through and do some real damage. Beasty's farms, they are going to be the next target, and I don't think he's ready to defend that.
No. Once the initial number has been lost and the breach happened, as we see here, with now Beasty trying to trap Wham in his base yet again. At this stage, with all the farms exposed, the keep is at the front, not on the farms, and there's no Great Wall Gatehouse either. This is the entirety of Beasty's food economy now idle outside of this little boar in the south here. And this is just disastrous. It cannot get worse for China than what we're seeing right now. The granaries, now a field of death for these villagers. They're going to fertilize the next paddy of rice, that's for sure. And Wham behind this, he just keeps massing. Until now. Because now, Imperial Age is on the cards.
And Wham is in the best position of his life. Just the decision on sticking with the Zhuge-Nus may have cost Beasty this whole series and his chance of qualifying for Red Bull Wololo. But Wham looking like he's ready to take this, and just the fight is happening. But we see the Zhuge-Nu right-clicked onto the horse archers. They're not caring about the knights. The horse archers slowly getting cleaned up, and the mass is thinning, but the high armory is being placed right now. It does look like Beasty will gain control of his base, but at what cost? We see so many villagers just not existing. You know, the 40 villager lead is insane for Wham here, and he's got his eco set up. He's in a pretty good spot right now.
Exactly right. Now the forces, the last of Wham's forces in Beasty's base are getting cleaned up, but a heavy price has been paid for this. And Wham is going to look to capitalize on it. When the high armory finishes, we're going to see the elite horse archer come in, the elite knights come in. University upgrades will soon be on the cards as well. And that keep that blocks the frontal access into Beasty's base will stand for now, but for how long, as the siege workshop is getting rushed up. Cheaper siege as well around the aura of that high armory will make it even more affordable here for Wham. First bombard should be in queue very, very soon here for him.
Now, getting that cheap siege feels great, but Beasty now knows what he needs to do. He needs to try and catch up to this. So, with Wham not landing as much damage as he did, like, he could have killed a ton more villagers, and this could have mean Beasty is completely out of this. But Beasty feels like, hey, I could potentially do it. Still focusing on those crossbows, and the horse archer numbers are still increasing. Beasty's raids have been sublime, but just not enough to get control of Wham. That second TC is showing us how important it can be to get that timing just right to do the transition. Absolutely brilliant read here by Wham. He hasn't started any of the siege just yet, though. He's slowly moving out, making sure that it is methodical. No risks need to be taken here.
Second DC is up and running for Beasty at this point, so he's going to be able to replenish his lost villages quite quickly here. Most of the granaries are quite healthy in terms of count here. There's a lot of farms underneath that boosted food influence. So in theory, Beasty could mount a comeback here. He does even now still have the military lead, but finding that age up is going to be very tricky. And where do you age up? Do you put the Great Wall Gatehouse on your granaries? Do you put it at the front next to the keep? It's tough. These raids will buy him time, and it will help a little bit, but it is a matter of time here for sure, until this push from Wham does come in, as the first bombard now rolls out of the workshop and likely headed directly towards that keep. Beasty finally has a great amount of crossbows, Zuganu as well as horsemen here. This is in theory the exact optimal composition to deal with this, but an age down, it's very difficult.
With the age advantage, Wham is definitely feeling like this could be his move. The bombard now hammering away at that poor little tower that falls very, very quickly. Beast now trying to get as many of his units ready for this as he can, but this is it. This is his final ability to just push. So this is a massive moment for him. Wham still getting raided behind it. The horsemen, they are going to be able to do the damage, and Beasty needs to find a way to claw himself back into this, and the only way is to not deal with Imperial Age units firing right at him.
Yeah, this is something Beasty does exceptionally well in the late game. Once his food is set up, he is so good at finding and placing these horseman raids all around the map. He's very adept at doing so, and is doing so again today. But the damage is way harder to find on this kind of a map. The hill is where most of the fruits can be found, and it is well fortified indeed. Speaking of fortifications, one has fallen, and a very important one at that here for Beasty, as the keep crumbles next to the gold, which removes Beasty's gold access entirely. Now he has plenty of it still, with the pagodas as well as the taxes. We see 400 per minute. That's still very respectable indeed, but considering he's not even close to Imperial Age yet, only halfway there in terms of food, he'll need plenty more of it.
And with those nest of bees, he's doing a pretty good job at trying to snipe. But the problem is just those nest of bees cannot give you an answer to the bombards, and the bombards are the key here. Those bombards are just going to fire away, slowly crawling forward. Beasty at max pop now, but he's getting into a point where he just doesn't have the resources to try and stop this. You see the knights now moving their way forward. He's got 31 spears to try tank this, but is it going to be enough? It just feels like there's a constant pressure here, and Wham is not letting up. Beasty slowly catching up on the villager count here, while Wham most likely going to stop producing those at some point. As you can see, the resources reaching at that maximum potential by now. So Two of the landmarks in a little bit of danger here, and the arrows now going to get that incendiary upgrade, making sure that they hit really hard against anything the Beastie throws at him.
Makes me wonder, do we already have biology in? Maybe we saw it, but I didn't quite catch it. As look at Beastie actually pushes directly forward to buy himself the space needed to get up this Great Wall Gatehouse. The Crocodile and the Beast here could potentially do amazing work because there's a huge mass here from Beastie. The remass into space can be very, very prudent here because that way the knights cannot hold the line and the horse archers are forced to kite. And this kiting breaks the lines here from Wham and pushes him away from Beastie's base, which is exactly what he needs for that space, as Imperial Age has been reached by Beastie now, but this army will fall. He's going to need to remass almost completely here. And then what does he remass? Because now there's no real army left to upgrade, so he bought himself the space needed to reach him, but it cost him his whole military force.
Him pushing this far out just feels like a little bit of that misstep that he couldn't afford right now. You see him sending his villagers out here trying to desperately find some damage, but those villagers are sitting ducks if Wham spots this. Now the Great Wall Gatehouse is gonna support this quite a bit, but Beastie's army mass here was the thing that was keeping him very much in this game. And now with him overcommitting like this, it is going to be dire. He does get the keep up, and he's building it at the speed of light. We can see with these horses, they are trying to find a lot more damage here, but Beastie is quickly rebuilding this. Wham spending his resources, but he's still got quite a bit in the bank here. And now they're going to turn their eyes on that keep, which Beastie cannot afford to lose right now.
Beastie trying to capitalize on Wham's move out, wanted to see if he can get a sneaky little snipe on those bombards, but Wham says no, not today, as Beastie actually evacuates the goat completely. Yeah, the scout tipped him off about Wham's knowledge, and he'd rather, yeah, there's no defending this, not yet at least. So in the end it was worth nothing but some thrown away stone and some idle time on the villagers. I guess he killed the scout probably, but not really what you're looking for here as Beastie, and this is how punishing this map can be. The map control that Wham fully looked to leverage early in the game continues even now, 20 minutes down the line, and with no map control here, you have no gold, and with no gold in Imperial Age, there's nothing left to fight for, as Beastie wants to make a final stand here. Again, the taxes, as well as the pagodas, do fantastic work for him behind this, and are able to keep him in the game for now, allowing him to afford some upgrades, even some hand cannoneers now in queue, 7 on the field already, but to keep sustaining the necessary army to beat the sheer quality on Wham's side, who's almost doubling Beastie now in destroyed value. He's gonna need 2 8k gold gains for that even.
Now Beastie is in a position here where you could potentially try to get rid of these bombards in this spot, but at the same time these spearmen, they are melting like butter, with those archers just being the knife slicing through them. We can see all the bombards getting back to safety, but Beastie is not out of this yet. He's holding on for dear life, and he says, you are gonna have to work for it if you want that spot in the finals against Anachad. I am gonna make you do everything. And with that, you can see the villager count, he's caught up. The income, that has not just yet. So definitely in a really, really tough spot for him, but he is out there on the gold in the south, and Wham has not found it just yet, but he has a few knights trying to idle this out. Beastie spending every bit of resource that he has into getting hand cannoneers and spears as a way to remax.
And Wham has now also discovered Beastie's mining operations in the south, as another key besides the sacred site and the large gold vein has been discovered. For now though, Beastie has good access to gold, and the hand cannon numbers are climbing pretty steadily here, but they need to climb way faster for him, and even if they do, the quality is still on Wham's side. The pop efficiency for Wham, it cannot get any better. Knights with the pole axes alongside fully upgraded horse archers and bombards. This is the peak boost army in the late game outside of Streltsy, but no need for those now, Wham says, as he'd rather rely fully on mobility at this point. Most of the knights split off in the north there as Wham looks to make an escape, but it's a feigned retreat really, because there's a raid behind this, and there's a regroup soon with most of Wham's forces. The bombards though, they are under threat, and one will fall. The backline looks great here from Beasty as well behind this, so Wham has to be very, very careful how he looks to kite here, because he could lose a lot on the retreat. The bombards, they actually get abandoned.
And losing those bombards is massive here. The thing is, that raid at the back, though, it has done its work. The knights definitely getting a lot of idle time here as Beasty struggles to remax this army yet again. But the bombards were all taken down. He's got 3 more in queue. He knows how much work they did. But with this composition, Wham still believes in the horse archers. He's still going to max out on them. And we see 46 of them already on the field again. Beasty, though, hand cannoneers all the way, with a handful of spears and a few horses in there, but not in the Imperial Age just yet. This is a pretty scary army from Wham, and he is looking at finding the eco that Beasty is sustaining this with.
Yeah, there's only 2 things Wham can challenge, only 2 things that are out on the map that Beasty needs and Wham can contest. Effectively, that being the gold as well as the wood. The wood is in the north, the gold is in the south. Wham looked like he was going to challenge the wood there first, but there is a keep in the way, so easier said than done. You know, Wham just peppering keeps and outposts. Fortified outposts of that all around the map. If we could have a look at Wham's vision, maybe we'll get an idea, but I think he sees virtually everything in this dale. Yeah, it's pretty clear. He sees every single gold vein at this point, and looks like he shifts his focus towards the gold. He knows the hand cannoneers are the main problem here for Chinese, so if we limit that, then we can deal with the rest.
Now, Wham is in a really, really good spot here, but Beasty is holding on for dear life, and he says, you're going to need to work for this win. He is pushing out now, and again, we have to be careful here not to do that bit of overextension, but right now it just feels like Wham is sucking up every single resource on this map, and Beasty is the one left to dry out. So Beasty now is really hoping for a clean fight here, but I don't think this is going to be enough. Wham can remax this army completely, even if he just loses everything into a TC right now. It would have to be a machine gun TC in that case as well, because these units are just not even dying to keeps. And we do see that Beasty looks for a little bit of an engagement here, but oh my goodness, these horse archers, they are doing work.
They are doing work indeed, but they do have to be very careful about their extension. The hand cannoneer mass is now reaching critical for Beasty, 32 and more in queue for him, and these outrange the horse archers at this point. I think they do, at least, even with silk bowstrings, and the firepower is immense from them. Not quite as pop efficient, but not far off either. And with the spearman as a front line, Beasty can produce these pretty much endlessly. Of course, his food income still looking very good, not as good as Wham's due to all that disturbance, and the bank, of course, is way in favor of Wham. He almost has, just like you mentioned, a free replenishment of his army if needed, but it's not like this army will just roll over and die.
Beasty now trying to get that bombard to try and snipe out something, but with the high armory, this trade just does not feel efficient enough. That one bombard will need to perform miracles, but Beasty is looking for damage elsewhere, trying to gain a little bit of ground out here. It's just not what he is exactly needed right now. Here is a position where he needs to grab the gold. He needs to find a little bit of leeway, but there are towers everywhere. Wham has keeps on every part of this map, and he's looking for the fight now. The horse archers, though, they can kite for days, and that's exactly what they do here. The bombards getting in position to keep sniping out things, and Barbican, he's trying to repair this to just give him a little bit of a safe haven to retreat into with his own bombards coming out now.
Oh, bombards on the field here from Wham. They're going to pretty much one-shot those spears at this rate if he does have chemistry on them as well. And little wraparound from the north side with some horse archers just to distract some of the units. The front line here for Beasty absolutely melts to the horse archers, opening the way for those knights to connect to Beasty's backline. But then again, Wham's own knights also just melt to the sheer mass of hand cannoneers. So who can remass this frontline faster? Wham had the huge bank, but he's making knights. You know, Beasty is just pumping spears endlessly here, and the backlines can't even get to each other. as soon as the front line melts, more units come to connect. Very few shots are fired onto the back line, but now the breakthrough happens. Horse archers up against hand cannons. Who wins in this case? Well, I feel like the horse archers would trade way more cost effectively. They don't even cost gold at the end of the day. And the Chinese hand cannoneers, although I think they have the extra range, there's no kiting going on just yet. Even with the Yuan dynasty, Beasty now forced to throw up panic fortifications as his economy and army are both crumbling before his very eyes. He cannot afford to remass, and GG is called. Wham secures his place in the final.
And Wham has broken the last few matches of curse that he's been faced against Beasty with. This is a massive moment for him. And finally, Wham taking down the Beast to face off against Anatan. And now we are back with the situation where it's Europe against Canada for that second spot at Red Bull Wololo.
Indeed. Wham continues his win streak specifically in the Red Bull Wololo. Years ago, Wham was the one to knock Beasty out in the qualifiers for that, and now does it again. Now before this, I think Beasty was on a 7 or even 8 series win streak up against Wham, but that has now been broken, whilst at the same time, the Red Bull win streak for Wham, which, yeah, it's just one game, but that continues. Actually, 2 games, there were 2 Red Bulls.
So with Wham now securing this feels massive for him. He has been, like we said, he's been struggling against Beasty for a bit, but with the Wololo back on the menu, it feels like he is ready to roll. And Anatan has a very worthy opponent in front of him here. Now, we expected over the last few weeks, we've been seeing Puppy Paw dominate quite a lot. So Puppy Paw now seeing his brother one step closer to doing this must motivate him to also work extra hard for that finals, or the second to last spot next week. So, guys, aside from all our yapping, there's a man waiting to talk about his success. So Myriad, take us away.
Indeed. Wham is on the line here to provide us a little bit of insight to this glorious victory over Beasty. Wham, good to see you, man. It's been a while. Congratulations. How do you feel?
I'm good, thanks. I mean, how could I feel better? You know, like 1 second. Sorry.
No, that's all good. Take your time. But yeah, it's yeah. I'm sure you do feel great, right? Breaking the sort of curse of the recent loss streak against Beasty, but at the same time keeping your Red Bull streak against Beasty in turn, right? Of knocking him out in these, except last week, of course. But this is the newest tournament so far, so that hasn't been fully put into the stats yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I wasn't really expecting to win. I wasn't expecting to lose either, but like, you know, you gotta expect like anything can happen. And honestly, I was quite surprised with the strategies that Beasty utilized. Like, I know he really likes to go knights and, you know, raid and all that stuff, but doing that against Albids it's kind of a tough situation to go up against, right? And you can kind of see in this game that like Knight versus Knight against Albids just kind of doesn't work. I feel unless you're like Sengoku or something. Like,
yeah, it's tough. It was a bit concerning at first there, right, for him in that regard. And I did say that I feel like the only real way this can work is if he sort of severely outplays you with raids and micro, right? Which he had some fantastic moments in the game, but you two are very close, right? Like blunders of that scale will not really happen. So in the end, obviously the camels will win out. I wonder if you felt it during the game though, like because due to bloodlines, knights are actually stronger directly up against camel lancers in a head-on fight. The knights will win, but obviously you built up the economic lead by then, so it didn't really matter in the end. But Desert Raiders would do quite a bit better. I'm guessing you picked the lancers just because they're way better at raiding, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially why I picked them. And I saw the Royal Institute, and I was just like, honestly, I was happy about it. I mean, maybe he had to do it because he would have died, but at the same time, like, once you see that, you know that there's no rush to ever, like, all in him. Because if he has the guild hall, he can just stall the entire game, and Beasty's really good at that, just stalling for the entire game. So once I saw that, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to raid as much as possible, defend as much as possible, and you can see here though, like I'm just getting more and more army value advantage, and that's just how I win the game.
Yeah, in the end, it all culminates into being just too much to resist. And then we have a very interesting matchup here again on Frisian Marshes. It surprised me a bit that Beasty picked this map, because I saw in the draft that I think you just had the better civs for Frisian Marshes, personally, with Tughlaq and Macedonian. It ends up being Macedonian against Delhi here. And this is such a weird matchup, I think, because who do you think wins in sort of a full feudal committal here? Because you both went for it, but neither of you, it looked like neither of you really even wanted to fight.
Well, it's a good question. I actually had this matchup against Scatterbrain, and I lost that matchup, so I'm like, this feels kind of bad for Delhi, honestly. And yes, I didn't want a feudal commit, but like, he didn't have the sites, so I didn't really need to, right? So I felt, you know, as long as he's not going to take the sites, then I can just go around killing fishing boats and stuff like that, and I can just try to get the advantage that way. But if he did try to take the sacred sites, then I would have pushed him back there, I think.
And when he went imp at that stage, now, I know if I was in your position, that's a bit of a, oh god moment, here we go, Beasty, Delhi imp, that stuff is from my nightmares, if I'm honest with you. But you kept your composure, you didn't overextend to try to punish it, you just kept firm control of the sites in the middle, and you just went imp yourself. Was that a very comfortable decision for you? Or was that more of a, well, you know, I just kind of hope I have enough to hold here against the onslaught of elephants that's about to come? Or was that something that you very consciously did and knew you'd be in a fine position regardless?
I mean, it's something I definitely consciously did. I mean, you could see how defensive he was in the mid game, and I honestly just wanted to take the sacred sites and win that way because, I mean, again, Beasty's just very good at like running around and kind of killing villagers and stuff like that. I just wanted to force him into taking Sonnen fights and stuff like that. And honestly, I was very happy with it. I mean, this is the kind of stuff I struggle against him, I think, is I kind of rush the game too much. And when I focus on map control and sacred sites and stuff like that, I usually do a lot better.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting to hear your perspective on that. But it all culminated very well. It was great, and your patience paid off as you did secure that win and got a nice lead as a result. And then we go into another very interesting matchup, one I haven't ever seen before, actually. But I guess French Sengoku is pretty close, right, if we're being honest. It's JD up against Sengoku here, and we see here you had a very nice little start there on that wood line, picking off villagers and causing idle time, getting XP on JD as well. Then you took some counter damage here, and the thing is, it feels a bit tough because economically you're so outmatched here by Sengoku, I think, right, in terms of food income from the food carts, and it felt like you were a bit delayed on your economic upgrades, which seemed to be a conscious choice in favor for even more knights. What was your sort of strategy here?
Honestly, I mean, my strategy was just to do as much damage as possible, and I kind of ended up not really doing the damage I wanted to. I mean, I tried to attack his gold and attack his wood and attack his food and stuff like that, but he obviously was very good defensively, and he used the shinobis and ninjas, whatever they're called, to pick a few knights here and there. And at the same time, he was using his horsemen, so I kind of knew this matchup in particular was going to be an uphill battle because of the matchup, but I mean, he played well anyway, so it's not like, you know, the game was bad by any means, I think, on either side. I think he played well.
It's one of those things, right? Because you're 2-0 up by this point from a drafting strategy perspective. This kind of an exchange is something you probably weren't very unhappy about at all, right? I mean, trading JD for one of Beasty's best in the form of Sengoku, sure you lose, but then you're looking in a great spot for the upcoming games, right?
Yeah, definitely. And Sengoku on Hillandale is like giga broken, so I really didn't want to play against Sengoku there. I mean, I could have banned it, but at the same time, I wanted the choice to be able to kind of pick what civ I was up against, and it allowed me to go into a matchup that I was pretty comfortable with, to be honest. Bruce versus China.
Yeah, I did mention pre-game that it feels like you and Poppy are sort of the only ones I've spoken to that directly think that Rus is good up against China, whereas most people would think the opposite. And I mean, horse archers are fantastic, and you showed exactly why mobility is king even today in Area 4. I mean, of course, today it's definitely the case, but on a map like Hill and Dale as well. And this was almost like a blast to the past here, wasn't it? Just, you know, pro scoutless FC from both of you. You and Kremlin. It's just,
Yep.
This was good. Was this the plan all along, or was it an adaptation?
I mean, it was sort of the plan. I think you could go either landmark, but Beasty is very good at raiding, and I just didn't want to have to deal with that. Like, Kremlin gives you the early advantage. You save like 175 wood, right? So that's like 4 minutes of the Golden Gate. Not a huge deal, but at the same time, like, if we're both fast castling, tempo is really, really important. So I could have went the other landmark. I just decided that this would be easier for me.
It's true enough. The vision and the defensiveness is not something to underestimate at all. And then you had some really amazing timings in this castle age when you caught him right as he was doing his Zuganu transition behind the Barbican, and you dive in. That caused such a huge delay over at this point. And then later on, you ended up getting those horse archers trapped right over here, which was it was looking scary for you. I was actually quite worried at that point because behind this, you had triple pagoda ticking, right? Starting the farm transition. It was looking pretty scary. Were you worried right now at this very moment in the game? Were you quite tilted even to say, or were you still like, okay, it's a loss, but I dealt enough damage?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt more towards that, like it was a loss, but I did enough damage. I mean, I probably should have killed the wall at the top side and went that way, but I saw the villagers on the bull and I kind of got a little bit greedy. But at this point, yes, he had the pagodas, but I went second TC. I still had 2 sacred sites and I still had 2 relics, so even if I'm a little bit behind on like the passive gold generation, I have that second TC allowing me to catch up in that regard. And I also, I thought I had a really big army. Like, I feel like I consistently had a bigger army than him throughout the entire game.
You did, which surprised me as well, because your units are so much more expensive, right? Like, he should have technically the higher count, whereas you'd have the higher value in turn. But it's still so difficult for him to sort of match those numbers, which, I mean, just goes to show. Maybe you guys are right all along. This is really good for Rus at the end of the day, due to this mobility, due to this pop efficiency that you've utilized so well. And again, I think this was a great example of patience this game. I think you showed exemplary patience here, not pushing excessively into Barbicans, into Great Wall Gatehouses, into nests of bees, all this kind of China shenanigans, and just keeping control of the center, denying resources. It was very well played.
Thanks. Appreciate that. I mean, that was my entire goal, so...
Indeed, and achieved it you have. Now moving on to the finals up against Anatan. You don't have to answer this question. I understand if you'd rather just take a few minutes and just, you know, be with your thoughts and have a little break. How you feel going up against Anatan?
I honestly have no idea. I mean, I feel okay. Like, any of these matchups versus Vortex versus Beasty, I feel like it could go either way, but... You know, it just depends on the matchups and if I play well, and... At the end of the day, it's like that. I feel like that's it. Like if you play well and you get good matchups, anything like it could always go your way, and that's the way I feel.
Wise words. I agree completely. It's 50-50 at the end of the day, isn't it? Both of you are very capable, very talented, and work hard. So, best of luck to you both, and once again, congratulations.
Thank you.
And looks like that'll be it for us here at EGC as well. So before this grand final commences for this week, we will have a short little break. Of course, Wham deserves a break here. Anatan still has a little extended break now going forward. We the casters and you the viewers deserve a little break as well. So just bear with us, get the refreshments you need, and we will see you again very, very soon.